It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, board members and guests. Thank you for being here. Before we start, just want to start with a little bit of a thank you. You know, we all had a lot of places that we could have been on a Tuesday night in Donna, Texas, but you chose to be here, which is a testament to the commitment that you have to your students and your community, and for that we thank you. I see some faces that I recognize and some new faces. I want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Marsha McMahon. I am the Lone Star Governance Coach assigned to Donna ISD. With me this evening is my partner, Lori Elliott. She's also a Lone Star Governance Coach, so we're going to be tag teaming throughout these next fun 3 hours as we go through evaluating and improving student outcomes. When we talk about moving forward in monitoring student outcomes, we look at the mantra, go ahead and change to the next one.
Yeah.
Student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. And what we're going to try to focus on tonight are how do we go about identifying some of the adult behaviors that might need to change? What do we need to look at? What do we need to look for as we strive to improve those student outcomes for our students? Tonight, we're going to be talking about why school boards matter. We're going to be looking at progress monitoring and why that's important. We're also going to go through the accountability system. So when you talk about that A through F, you kind of have an idea of what that means and what that involves, as well as implementation and why implementation is so important in the process of student outcome goals. So the first question I want to propose to you is, why do school systems exist? Why do they exist? What's the purpose? Don't be afraid to answer. Just know you're all going to talk tonight.
Serve the needs of the children.
Needs of the children.
Provide direction and education for our children.
Direction and education for our children.
Absolutely, education.
Education, what else? Any other ideas? You know, why did no one say that school systems existed to make sure the cheerleaders had the correct color uniform? Or to make sure that the infield was painted the correct color?
About to make sure there's toilet paper in every bathroom.
Make sure that there's toilet paper and the right receptacle in every single bathroom. Why do school systems exist? School systems do not exist to have a balanced budget. That's important. It plays a role in helping us educate our students, but that's not why we exist. School systems do not exist to make sure our change orders and our facilities are up to par and up to order. Is that important? Absolutely it's important, but is it why we exist? School systems do not exist to be the popular talk of the coffee shop or the cantina, to be the discussion of the community. Is the input and the vision of the community important?
Yes.
Absolutely. You all represent the vision of this community. And most importantly, school systems do not exist to provide jobs and positions for friends and family. There is one reason school systems exist, and that is to improve student outcomes. And that's going to be our focus this evening, on improving student outcomes. So what is a student outcome? It's a very basic definition. It is what, go ahead and go to the next one, click again. Go back. What students know and are able to do. It's not what teachers know and are able to do. It's not what principals know and what are able to do. And it's not even what the superintendent knows and what is able to do. It is what our students know. And that's what we're going to be focusing on. I'm going to ask you to think about a very critical question, and you can write your notes on your notepad. One more, Lori. After your time in leadership is done, when your term as a board member is over, or you choose to move on to something else or something different, what is the difference you want to have made in Donna ISD? as a board member, what is your vision? Donna ISD is different because Dr.
Valdez.
Valdez, because Dr. Valdez was here. Our school system is different because Alicia helped get this into place. So take a few minutes, 10 words or less. 10 words or less, write it down, because you're gonna come back to it throughout the training. 10 words or less. What is the difference you want to have made? And we're just gonna go round robin, starting over here. What's the difference? 10 words or less.
I want to leave the district a better place via improved student scores.
A better place via improved student scores.
Ensure that our school systems operate in a way that puts student first.
Operate in a way that puts students first.
For every child to be given an equal opportunity to an education by providing the support systems that they need to be successful.
Equal opportunity through support systems to be successful. Thank
Support
you.
systems.
My wish is to have the highest scores that our students have accomplished.
Highest scores they've ever accomplished.
Yes.
Awesome.
To have provided positive outcome and success of our students in order to affect their lives.
Say that one more time.
The full part? Have provided a positive outcome and success of our students in order to affect their lives.
Outcome to affect their lives. Awesome.
Overall, just a better Donna ISD. Morale needs to go up, students got happier, best education that we can get for them,
Just a better Donna.
yes.
Very well put, and much less than 10 words. Just a better Donna.
Provide better and more opportunities and choices for all our students.
Better opportunities for all of our students. Go to the next slide. The leadership in this district is critical. It starts with you, and it flows from this board to the superintendent, to the leadership team, to the principals, to the staff, to the communities, the parents, family, everybody. Everybody in this community plays a role in trying to achieve each one of these things that you all mentioned that you are hoping to accomplish in this district. We have a quick video that I want to share with you. It's called Student Outcomes, School Boards, and You. And it talks about the role of the board and how the community works with the role of the board. Click the play button.
Well, I'd like to.
It's hard to do it when you're here and the things are there.
Or you just hit the board, it works, it's interactive.
Oh, I can touch that?
Yes.
The basic definition of a student outcome
Hey,
is
that's
what
much.
students know and are able to do. And the thing that is very difficult for a lot of people to sometimes understand is it centers on that word student. We often talk about teachers, teachers getting training to do this, and programs that come into our school systems that can do this. That's not a student outcome. Those are things that go in to create those student outcomes.
If you were to ask any board member, they say, oh yes, we truly do focus on student outcomes. Well, what they're focusing on, if you go to their board meeting and really watch what's happening and look at their agenda, they're focusing mostly on inputs.
So as a school board member, my fundamental role is to govern and oversee the management of the school system. There are 4 primary functions that a school board member serves. The first is to set the vision and the mission of the district. The second is to ensure that you are passing policies and revising policies that are critical to the education of our students. Next, it's to manage and oversee the work of the superintendent. And then finally, to be a community advocate, someone who is consistently going out and engaging the community to get an understanding of their thoughts on DISD and how to incorporate those into system-wide decision-making.
When we're talking about governance in the sense of, at least in my district, these are elected officials, meaning that you're going here asking people for your support and your vote to be able to say that I'm going to represent you, meaning I'm going to hear what you have to say. I know what your needs are, and I'm willing to be the advocate to go in here and meet on their behalf and to make sure that you get those things that you need. That's what the heart and essence of governance is supposed to be, is that a representative of the people, of the district in which you are a part of, that you live in and work in, and that this is your community that you're fighting and advocating for.
They manage billions of dollars, billions of taxpayer dollars, and make hundreds and hundreds of decisions that affect not only children and educators, but also our community. People do not recognize how important and how instrumental those school boards are to not only the outcomes that our students have, but also how that education system impacts our own community.
Each school has its own needs, it has its own culture, and the school board needs to be that body of people who can really go in and say, how can we best support that body, that principal that's out there, that's out. What are the resources they're gonna need, and how we be behind the scenes helping in whatever way to make sure they have the things they need to best educate those students, to for us to put out the best product to these people who are going to go be ambassadors for our schools, our cities.
And the fact that it's a voluntary position that's occupied by individuals who are just passionate and empathetic about the quality of education for students, it intensifies a level of appreciation and profound respect that me as an educator that I have for the individuals who signed up for this pro bono gig that really shapes the foundation of our society.
So originally I wanted to be a school board member because I wanted to fix athletics, the food in the schools. I was focused on the things that mattered at the street level, at the community level. And came in for what we would now say for all the wrong reasons. Good intentions, but not what school board governance is designed to do. Being a parent coming into the system, my lens was as a parent first, and as a board governance second and really last.
The school board members that we see who are most effective have a unique and strategic focus on student outcomes and really do their best not to let all of the other issues that come up, which there are so many, not let that be a detraction to the ultimate goal of getting kids ready for the lives that they pursue.
Be self-aware of who you are and how you view the role. So in that self-awareness is recognizing where you stand with power, and I don't just mean personal power, I even mean positional power. The role comes with a lot of positional power. And so knowing and understanding how you as the individual embark on a journey of handling personal and positional power is crucial, because when the day comes that you don't get your way as a trustee, you may exude your positional power in a way that may be destructive to the entire system.
There are 3 specific behaviors of board members that when they exhibit these behaviors, student outcomes and student achievement does increase. Number 1, it's working collaboratively with the superintendent to write those student outcome goals. Number 2, identifying limitations and non-negotiables, things that they don't want to have happen in their school district. And number 3 is monitoring those goals. A board that governs has their goals, they know what they want to achieve, they know what they want their students to be able to do. Superintendent, this is your job. This is what you're held accountable for. This is what we are evaluating you on. We're not going to evaluate you on how many checks you signed. We're going to evaluate you on how our students are doing.
If you have a true partnership with your colleagues You have a true partnership with the superintendent, that comes with trust, and I understand that that's very, very delicate. But the superintendent is key, because they are the ones who are steering the ship. The board members are to lay out the overall vision and hold the superintendent accountable. So that's one of the stickiest spots for a board member to want to behave as a superintendent.
I learned a long time ago from a very wise mentor. He said, "You 35 superintendents, you guys are nothing but a bunch of hired hands." I said, "Wait a minute, I'm a well-trained professional educator. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Raise your hand if you're going to retire in the community where you serve right now." And only 3 people raised their hand. And he goes, "See, I told you were hired hands." I said, "But your board members, they're going to retire where they're serving their community right now. So it's not your money. It's their money, their kids, and their schools."
Every one of your decisions as a school board member has student outcomes at the forefront of your decision making. Think about your behaviors as a school board member and whether or not they are positively or negatively impacting those student outcomes. Once you can do those 2 things, then you really can empower yourself to be a better advocate and a better school board member and put student-first decisions in place that will ultimately impact the outcome of all the students that you're in charge of governing for.
Have love for what you do. Have love for being passionate about advocating for education and advocating for all students. And in that all is also recognizing that there's issues of equity that must be addressed. And as our superintendent says, the demographics aren't changing, they have changed. And that means that a trustee has to have love for all children in the system, not just the ones that look like you, not just the ones that think like you, and not just the ones that live in your community.
If the board and the district were more focused on student outcomes and specifically on student progress, there would be a lot more freedom to be able to give students what they need by being flexible.
If I were to give tips to teachers about advocating or having a seat at the table in this game we call education, the first thing is to just get involved in understanding board politics. Start with your campus, become an expert in some area, and then use that which you know well, your expertise, to kind of infect others, and that may move on beyond your campus.
Get your community involved, gather them up and talk about maybe these are some of the same things they want to see changed within their schools. And show up at the board meetings and speak, sign up to speak. And be persistent and consistent. And if there's information that can back up why the change needs to happen, then provide that, because then you have more ammunition at that point.
The way that the community can help is to become more engaged and to participate and to speak up, both in terms of encouraging what is right with the system and helping us redirect when things can be improved. And I would encourage community members to participate, whether it's at a board meeting, in the public comment section, whether it's sending communication to me, whether it's communicating with the trustees in their area. More information is better than not enough.
This is not just for teachers, this is for everybody. Get out there and vote, please. When there is an election, whether it's a school board election, whether it's a municipal election, whether it's a national election, they all really come together. The exciting thing to me about local politics is you can have almost an immediate influence.
Okay. I'm sure you recognize a couple of people in here. Tell me, what are some of the takeaways you got from that video? Some of the things that kind of stuck out at you and you say, hey.
The most important one I saw or heard was that as a board, our mission and vision statement, it should be the forefront that directs the district where we need to go.
So your mission and vision should be at the forefront and direct your district the way that it needs to go. Anybody else have any takeaways?
I think the most evident thing that pops out probably on everything that you're gonna do and that I've seen is student outcomes. That needs to be our main focus and our main emphasis in our decision making.
Student outcomes. Student outcomes are the main and number one focus.
Exactly.
And that was the whole point really of this video. And I, as an educator that's been around a long time, that's one of the exciting pieces about Lone Star governance that I really latched on to, was that student outcome piece.
And I think it's very important also that as board members that we recognize that student outcomes is not necessarily a measure of a child's cognitive ability. It's not. Basically, it's more a measure of what the student has learned based on the state objectives. It's not the child's cognitive ability.
It's what a student knows and is able to do.
Exactly.
Okay,
Is that
Ms.
right?
GT, you're about 7 slides ahead of us.
She's the AP wonder.
But, you know, all of this, I think, is tied into exactly what we, not only the outcomes, but also governance. And all those pieces that you have up there ties into that, and how we do that affects a student outcome.
Exactly. Everything that you do within the school should be what? Focused toward improving student outcomes. And I think if you keep at the forefront just the picture of those kids in your mind when you're making those decisions, knowing that that is where everything should go. Everything, every decision we make, whether it's facilities, whatever, how is it helping our student outcomes? So this is a very powerful video because you got to hear also from some other board members that they've been experiencing, some of the things that they've been experiencing. Anyone else want to share? Alicia?
I like when Cinto Ramos talked about handling your personal and positional power, and how being a school board member comes with a lot of power, and it changes the dynamic, or I've experienced the need to you have to reach out, because I think that power can be very intimidating even when you don't intend it to be.
With those around
The
you.
positional power, yeah.
Even in the community, that is true. And how you see that power. Again, that goes back to what mindset. So what is in your mindset? What is your focus of your job? And that whole piece of mindset of where we are in terms of putting student outcomes at the forefront of our mindset. So that's kind of where we're going with this. And as I said earlier to some, I said this is like an appetizer to Lone Star governance. Some of you have already been through Lone Star governance, and so you can kind of see those connections. Let's move on and let's talk a little bit about inputs, outputs, and outcomes. I'm hungry. I'm really hungry. Okay? What's the outcome I want?
To not be hungry.
To not be hungry.
To feel satisfied.
To feel satisfied. To feel full. Okay, it's obvious from my clothes, I don't have a problem with that. But nevertheless, if I'm hungry, the outcome I want is to feel full, to be satisfied. Okay? Why is it going to get food from the grocery store? Why isn't that the outcome I want?
Because the food you're gonna get is the menu that you've created for the week of the meals you're gonna wanna have, so you're not hungry.
Could be, all right? So if I go to the store and I buy food, in order to really feel full though, I have to do what? I have to eat it, don't I? Okay? And as Marsh has used this example so many times, is that, have you ever been to the grocery store and you bought all of this stuff and you come home and you're still hungry? And you think, well, why did I go to the grocery store? What did I get to satisfy me? Nothing. Yeah, Snickers bars. So, it's not just about going and getting food. What about going to a restaurant? Same situation, isn't it? I could go to the restaurant and end up nothing on the menu that I liked, would I be satisfied? No. Would I have reached my outcome? No. Okay, so my outcome, we hope, is to feel satisfied, to feel full, okay? Inputs are resources and activities invested in a particular program or strategy, usually knowable at the beginning of a cycle, okay? A measure of effort applied, all right? The outputs are the results of a particular set of inputs, usually knowable in the midst of a cycle, a measure of the implementation of the program or strategy itself. And the outcome, which is what I want here, is to feel full, is the impact of the program or strategy, usually knowable at the end of the cycle. Okay? Move on, let's see, where are we? Yeah, this one I love. PB&J, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So, I want to feel full. And I want to use a PB&J to feel full. Okay, I want to be satisfied with it. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What are some of the inputs or resources at the beginning of the cycle that I'm going to need in order to reach my outcome, which is to feel full after eating my PB&J, right? Okay, so what are some of the resources or inputs that I would have at the beginning? The bread, the peanut butter, money to buy it. That's right. Anything else?
The time and effort to make
The time and effort to prepare it. Very good. A person.
A gas, walking, car, I mean.
All that stuff, right? Peanut butter, jelly, bread.
Also knowing what you want to eat.
Pardon?
Also knowing what you want to eat.
Also knowing what I want to eat. That I want a PB&J, right? Because, hey, I may not like PB&J or somebody else may not.
And the
Okay.
quality of those different ingredients.
Okay, we're getting to that.
Wheat bread.
We're getting to that. Okay, so these are just the resources, right? Probably need a plate, probably need a knife, and then probably somebody smear it on there, because it's not gonna go on there by itself. So those are all resources. Some of them are physical resources, some of them are human resources. Okay? Let's move on to the next one. Let's say that I have a class of third graders, and they're all hungry too. And I think, okay, I will fix peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for them. But how can I ensure that my third graders will be satisfied? Will be full? I got my resources, right? I got peanut butter, I got jelly, I got bread. I got somebody to put the bread, the peanut butter on the bread, the jelly. I got plates. I got napkins. I had money to do it. Okay, but I got this whole group of third graders here. How can I ensure that they're going to have the same outcome of feeling full?
And you got little Johnny who's allergic to.
Johnny might be allergic to peanut butter, right? So I'm gonna have to probably say, hey, let's take a poll here. How many of you are allergic to peanut butter before we start this? Because I might have to change here, right? Some of them might be able to use peanut butter and jelly, and the others I might have to have grilled cheese.
Or just jelly.
Or just jelly. Okay. So I might need to take a poll about having somebody that's allergic to peanut butter. What else might happen?
Have enough of the ingredients. Make sure that everybody gets enough.
Right. Do we have enough? Do we have enough?
I guess relating it to education, it's also understanding that the same program is not going to work for all the kids. So you need to have different.
She's star student. We're getting there.
You need to have different,
That's right.
different resources for their learning.
Exactly,
abilities.
those outputs, all right? So these outputs could be like the surveys. How many of you like peanut butter jelly? How many of you do not? How many of you are allergic? How many really want grilled cheese? Okay? So you're right. Knowing that information impacts my inputs, doesn't it?
It impacts, yep.
And it may mean that I have to change some of them. Okay? To reach my overall outcome of feeling full. Now, how does this apply to a school district? You're steps ahead of me here. How does this apply to a school district or a school system? You're already on the right track. Talk to me.
All the resources and the activities, what are the manipulatives that you have? Is it hands-on activities? Are they centers? Are they read-alouds? What are they?
Right. I have all these resources, right?
Correct.
I could have hands-on activities. I could have technology. I could have books. I could have literacy programs. I could have all kinds of programs. Okay? But all of these inputs, okay, have to be gauged by what? The output. The output. So I have to look at, are my kids gonna be full? Are they gonna get what they need? Okay? And are these resources truly supplying the needs of these children to reach the outcome? Okay? Just like a few minutes ago, if they were allergic to peanut butter, I'd have to change, wouldn't I? So if I've got a program that isn't working for some, I'm gonna need to change it. So the beauty of this is, yes, we've got resources at the beginning, but the outputs will tell us if our resources are doing what they're supposed to do to get the outcomes we want. If they're not, guess what?
We have to adjust.
We have to adjust. We have to adjust. And because children, and I said this to legislators. I did, we were in a session, I was, campaigning for something. And I said, children are not shoes.
One size did not fit.
One size did
But and you can't say, okay, this is the material we're gonna use for this shoe, and everybody's gonna be alike. That just doesn't work. I've got kids that come with holes in it, holes in their shoes. So here again, because we're not making shoes, then not all of the resources are going to fit every kid. Not all of our strategies are going to fit every kid. So vital to this are the outputs that happen in the middle of the cycle that tell us, is it working or not? Are we going to reach the outcome?
And then when you apply an equity lens, so many programs sometimes reach a lot of kids multiple times and none of the kids none of the times.
Exactly.
And that's where data comes into play.
Exactly. Just like our surveys for the kid with the peanut butter jelly sandwich. In every school system, I know Marcia and I have been doing a lot of turnarounds for years. And those outputs are so vital. I think school systems have always had a lot of inputs. I'm not saying they're bad, a lot of them are good, okay? But it's the outputs that tell you, does it fit your kid? Does it fit your students? Okay? If it doesn't, then you better change these inputs so that your outcome will be what you want it to be in the end. And that's why the outputs are very vital. I got carried away here, sorry. So we've talked about this, that how is it related to school district. So no matter what, we have inputs, outputs, and outcomes. We have inputs, outputs, outcomes in life. We have inputs, outputs, outcomes in school systems, all right? But let's take it just a little step further. Let's look at inputs, outputs, outcomes according to what you see within a school system or even your school system. You know of any inputs?
the program, guided reading is one.
Guided reading program, okay?
A number of teachers.
Teachers. Someone said a few minutes ago, money.
I want to focus on the teachers. Hands down, number one, teachers are your most important input in your school system.
Research
There's no
tells
other
us that.
resource that's more important. The number two resource are the campus principals and administration.
That's right.
Hands down, number one, teachers are the most important because they have the direct link to achieving those outcomes.
It's that relationship between the student and the teacher that makes it happen. The relationship between the student and teacher that makes it happen.
And it's not just having the teachers, it's the quality of the
It's
instruction.
the quality.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Yeah, I know that's a, yeah, but I was just adding that in.
And I have to tell this story, it'll probably make me cry, but, and Marshall will probably shoot me for telling it, but nevertheless, I had a teacher once that, she was an awesome teacher, and she wrote notes to her students every Christmas, and to their parents, about how much she really appreciated these students. We had one girl who could not, she wasn't passing any of her tests, except for science, and that, back in those days, that was the hardest test that they were taking, was the biology test in high school. But she passed biology and failed everything else. So Sharon asked her, she said, what is it? Why is it that you passed biology, which is a real struggle for most kids, and you're failing your other tests? She said, Ms. Gensel, I didn't want to let you down. It was the relationship between that student and the teacher that was vital. This child was intelligent. She was having problems at home. So, but it was that relationship piece that made it happen. So that teacher is vital to everything, you know, that's happening with these students in school. So that is your what? Your most precious resource. Your most precious input would be your teachers. What would be some outputs in school districts? What would be some outputs?
Remember, outputs are in the middle.
They're in the middle, and they tell us if our inputs, our resources, programs, teachers, how we're using our money, everything, if it's really happening for kids, the outputs will tell us. What are some outputs?
I'm trying to think of non-obvious ones, like other than like the benchmark tests and
Benchmark
stuff. I
testing is
mean,
a good one.
but I'm trying to think of other, maybe more qualitative. That's the first one that comes to my mind.
Well,
like
that's a very good one, because
benchmarking,
benchmarks
quantitative.
There's one that I'm thinking about.
Percentage of retention, teacher retention.
Okay.
So many.
Teacher retention, benchmarks, teacher retention.
But what I'm thinking about
growth in
is
reading levels, maybe?
Correct.
the
Have you
testing,
measured
I mean, not
from
the testing,
iStation
but there's
every
certain
year?
programs,
Yeah.
like iStation, where the kids, the teacher takes them and dumps them in a lab and says, okay, go, you're gonna do 30 minutes of iStation, and the kids are just there, okay.
Okay, so iStation would be what?
Well,
The
the
input,
But it could also-
but
The data.
the data from
Be the
it
output.
would be your
It could
output.
be skewed, yeah,
Yeah,
because,
would be your, yeah, it could depending on how the
yeah,
kids
the kids will sit
responding.
there and they just sit there and just
I
push
have,
the
I have a son that what he would have done is,
yeah. But they get their 30 minutes in.
it's a good program. But
And done
you're-
correctly. That
Yeah,
becomes a
done
teacher
correctly
issue
and how
now.
it is,
Correct.
Not a
how it's
student issue.
implemented. So your output would be that data.
Yeah, the data.
Okay, anything else in a school system? The whole school system.
I mean,
You got
like
money, management,
hiring, you know, hiring, time to take to be fully hired.
Like
for all
a
the
report?
positions. Yeah,
Some type of a report.
like the number of vacancies when you start a school year.
Okay, number of vacancies when you have the school year, and some kind of report on maybe even the progress of teachers.
Percentage of,
Or teacher retention rates, that's
Teacher retention rates, that's very good.
maybe the years of teaching in a teacher, whether they're beginning or experienced or have tons of experience. The salary, maybe average salary, are they below the average state level or above? That's just a lot of.
Don't forget for those teachers, an important output for those teachers are those evaluations throughout the school year. That, getting feedback
Feedback
from the
observation.
principal will determine whether the teacher is going to achieve their outcomes.
But isn't that that's what I think gets challenging between inputs and outputs when we look at teachers is even at statewide levels, there's so much back and forth around how can you do value add assessment on teachers, like this teacher actually grows this student this much versus,
But that would be an output report in terms of how did that teacher do in terms of growing that student. Could be a report. It could be something even that you monitor, whether it's through benchmarks or wherever. You can also monitor your teachers that way.
Because what I've read is that there's discrepancies between like the number of teachers that get proficient performance on, let's say it's not the T-test.
T-test now.
T-test, yeah,
T-test.
okay. That a large percentage of teachers, yet when we look at student achievement across the state, it doesn't match.
How can it be that 96% of our teachers
Are proficient.
are proficient or above, and less than 60% of our students
Are reading on grade level.
And where does that go back to? To which level would that go back?
You mean like inputs or outputs, is that what you're saying?
Well, in terms of just who's responsible at that point, just be thinking. That comes to under what? If all these teachers are given proficiency, who's giving it to them? See what I mean? So here again, you have an input.
The leadership, yes.
You have a.
Can leadership
tool.
be input?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Can you have outputs for leadership?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And you have initial overall outcomes for
For that
leadership, don't you?
campus.
Okay. So, in a system, you have inputs, you have outputs, you have outcomes for the overall system. It could be financial. What about the financial reports? Isn't that it? Don't we have input there? Don't we monitor it throughout the year? Don't we have a complete audit and everything at the end of the year? Okay, so we have an outcome. So in each area, there's all kinds of areas. You could have buildings, couldn't you? You can have construction inputs. All right, so the school system has lots of outcomes that connect back to inputs and outputs. Would you agree with me? Okay, so let's take it a step further.
One thing I'm wondering about though, because the way I've thought about this before in the past is like, we can have school buildings and a well-balanced budget, but not have the student outcomes that we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Or like vice versa, right? Like those,
You can have the most beautiful building in the world, but it still doesn't gonna guarantee that learning's happening in the classroom.
I mean, you can have A
Teachers
plus
and the
financial.
Even the student.
I've worked with schools that had A plus financial. But they're rated a D for their kids. Yay, we're in good shape financially, but our kids are over here starving.
And they have the world's best buildings.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to,
Now, this is where we're gonna do
Right.
their board meeting.
that's right, I'm getting to that, I'm just trying to find it here.
I just put it right there on that corner.
I see it. I left my glasses in the car, sorry. Okay, we're going to look at your board meeting, two of them. The one in November, which is recently, the 13th, and one in September, the 11th. Okay? And really, what I want you to do is I want you to go through these minutes, our agendas. There's one we didn't have in minutes, we had to use the agenda.
Let's do September first.
Okay, here's September the 11th, let's look at that. Now I want you to see if you can identify inputs, outputs, and outcomes. Oh, did I give you two? I'm so sorry.
I just got to do it twice now.
Did you get 11?
This November was coming around this way.
Okay.
I think, the
We're
time
looking at
spent.
September. So according to your board meeting, okay, let's look at September. time did you spend on inputs? How much time did you spend on outputs? And how much time did you spend on outcomes within your board agenda?
If you have any questions, raise your hand. Using the September board meeting.
Using the September board meeting, we'll get to November here in a few minutes. And everybody should have voted. How much time did you have on inputs, outputs, and outcomes? Where did you focus most of your time? Now, I do know this board has gotten tremendously good. Y'all are doing well. So yours may not be as blatant as some board members, but nevertheless, I want you to look at your minutes. Where did you spend your time? Inputs, outputs, outcomes.
So we spent 15 minutes on the student outcome goals.
Total time, or just,
Yeah, how much time do you think you spent on inputs? Percentage, if you can, just roughly, rough estimate. What was your percentage amount on inputs, outputs, and outcomes?
I'm a little torn because like on the first one, I could see that both being an input and an output.
I'd say about 12 minutes on inputs, and I'd say about 17 minutes on outcomes.
So you say 12 minutes on inputs, and how much time on
About
outcomes?
17 on outcomes, based on what I'm seeing.
And what did you say, Alicia? You were a little.
No, I was just saying this first one, like as an example, I'm a little torn because I could see it being an input because it's a program, but an out because we were looking at some of the data.
Output could be an output.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I could almost count this kind of both half the time. Divide 8 minutes. I don't know.
Okay, so let's say at that point in time, I'm not really sure if you already adopted your student outcome goals. At September.
Yes.
You had adopted them.
No, this is what this item is.
Oh, okay.
That was where we
So,
get the major
this is
discussion.
this item.
Major discussion, so it hadn't been adopted
No.
yet, right? Okay.
Not.
So let's say if you had a student outcome goal that aligned with this and aligned with this data, then you'd be looking at a student outcome. Here again, it could be a student outcome, but what we want you to do is a laser focus on it to where you've identified exactly which ones. We're coming to that.
So I look at it more like an output because the input was the program.
Program.
But here we're recognizing how much.
The number of
read.
Numbers
So
of output.
exactly, so we're looking at it more like an output.
More like the data.
Yes.
Mhm.
So what were some other guesstimates of amount of time? Inputs, outputs, outcomes?
say about 40% outputs, or inputs and outputs, and 60% of your outcome.
Okay.
It's roughly.
40, 60?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what everybody's kind of?
About 40, 60.
We're seeing 40% inputs, outputs were 40%, and outcomes were 60%? Okay. What were your outcomes?
Well, the outcome was actually the approval, and then the discussion is actually just the input that they're having. So discussions of the 5-year monitoring calendar and students. So we're looking at an outcome there as well. I mean, even though it just says, to me, it's a discussion, but it's the outcomes that come out from that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of like a tie-in. So we're projecting forward. This is what we want, this is an objective, this is a goal.
And that's stuff that has to be done, right?
But
That's stuff that has to be done.
At this point in time, I would think that it was more of an input because we were actually discussing the monitoring calendar. How
Which
it
had not been adopted
Had
yet?
not been adopted, so we were actually just, we were looking at where is it that we wanna go? So this, an input that we were discussing is where is it that we wanna go as a board? And we looked at these items that we had for the calendar, and we were trying to to anticipate, where is it that we want to
Okay,
be?
so what you're seeing this as the calendar is the input,
Mhm.
projecting where you want to go as your outcome. And the calendar will provide you times that you will monitor what? You'll monitor the outputs.
Right, but your outcome is exactly that piece, that you were able to put that as a calendar and discussed it, so that is your outcome as well. Just
Right.
like I said, it's all inclusive. And then there's obviously the superintendent constraints and so on and so forth, and goals and projections, it's an outcome. This is what I want it to be at. The input is given.
Because we're looking at generally
Correct.
overall outcomes, overall outputs, overall inputs to your system, okay? So, yeah, I could have an actual outcome about my teachers, I could have an outcome about my calendar, that we finished it, that our outcome was to finish it. So we had an input, we monitored that it was being done, the outcome was to finish the calendar. That's that's the perspective you're going on. Okay.
And then the 5-year plan, which is exactly ties into that, how we want to complete it at that point, where we want to be in 5 years, projection. for us.
Project your outcomes.
That would be the outcome.
Oh, yeah, this is what I was thinking about, because I think of the outcomes as this, I think of outcomes as only the things that ultimately impact the bottom line, which is what students know and be able to do. Us adopting a calendar, to me, wasn't an outcome, because it wasn't about what students know and be able to do, which why I was thinking it was input, but I think this is
where
what
we're
it's getting
going
at it,
with it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
This is where
More
we're
like
going.
a tool.
So if all we have are inputs, outputs, and outcomes, as you said, it could be all kinds of things, all kinds of areas that we could be looking at, right? But when we take it a little step further, within a school system, you have other outcomes and you have student outcomes. Okay? Other outcomes and student outcomes. Other outcomes is a measure of school system results that are not student results. Are they necessary though to run a system anytime? I mean, let's face it.
If I'm not mistaken, when we were discussing this, one of the major items was we're looking at reading scores and how much of an increase we wanted to project. And I know that, we asked the directors, okay, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're projecting the growth of 5.5% every year for the next 5 years. So over the next 5 years, we're at 42% right now, and we want to be at 65. So that was
Let me ask you, is that related to students or is that overall?
That was for students.
Students, that's right.
Student growth.
So, exactly. So what we have to do is we have to wrap our head around this. That yes, it is important. These other outcomes are important. You have to have financials to run a system, right? But the whole thing that we're trying to get across in LSG is that we exist for kids. Okay? So that we don't just get off track with all these other outcomes, outputs, inputs, and we focus more on the student outcomes. Should your financials relate to your student outcomes?
Yes.
Okay. Should your programs and your teachers, should they tie into your student outcomes?
Absolutely.
Okay. So everything goes to support this piece. Student outcomes, what students know and are able to do. Okay? But you have to see the difference. And I know, wrapping your head around it, because many times we think, okay, because especially at LSG and LSU coaches, it's all we think about is student outcomes, student outcomes, student outcomes. But there are a lot of outcomes, there are a lot of inputs, there are a lot of outputs within a school system that will support student outcomes, but they're not student outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So we have to be able to see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to look at this, again, November. Marcia's got it memorized.
Did you all have a final, when you all looked at this, did you have a final take on?
Your percentage?
Yeah.
There was nothing on student outcomes because, well, student outcome goals, because you hadn't adopted them yet.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna look at November.
Did you get
Oh,
Did you get November?
yeah, they got November. Everybody got November?
Because you really can't monitor something you
Because, but we're gonna add a twist to this, because your November meeting was very, very special. I watched it, I was beaming. I was so proud. So very proud. Because I want you to look at and tell me how much time, we said inputs, outputs, other outcomes, student outcomes, just focus and look to that agenda and see if you can tell us how much time did you spend on student outcomes?
What students know.
What students know and are able to do.
Right off the bat, 37 minutes. You recognize all those students who had that campaign.
It's about 70%.
And it acknowledged all the number of words and books and stuff that they had all read over the summer.
Close a bit, you speak.
You're close.
Your student outcomes were much higher. Your percentage was much higher in November.
Because you had your first what? You had your first monitoring report, didn't you? Aligned to some of the things we're getting ready to talk about. So you guys are kind of coming in after the fact. These guys know what led into it. We're gonna catch you guys up to speed with it.
So, student outcomes, as you can see, we kind of whittle it down to where our main focus is going to be on student outcomes. But other outcomes, the outputs, the inputs, all will support the student outcomes. And what Marcia's saying is that you're close, okay, when you're recognizing students, which is a good thing, no problem there, okay? But if we're really looking at time tracking this for LSG, those recognitions are great, but do they tie to your student outcome goal? And that's just a decision you have to make, okay? So if we were looking at this, for every recognition that you had, did it tie into one of your student outcome goals?
Push.
No, absolutely not, not the check.
Not the check, exactly.
Not the check. What about the students?
Number 2?
Mhm.
Yes. And we designated 37 minutes.
I think just this part right here. The rest of it is on.
So tell me about the student recognitions. What were you recognizing students for?
Reading.
What about reading?
How many books they read over a period of time?
What was the goal?
The goal? I think that time, I think the goal was to improve reading by a certain number. I just can't remember what it was.
You mean the goal
or it
for
was
this program?
the student outcome goal that you all were monitoring that night.
Oh,
The percentage of students, what?
Reading level.
On grade level.
On or above grade level. Just because I read so many books.
This is different than what we did in
But it
one.
could be,
Right.
that could be an output though.
This, yes.
So
So it gets kind of sticky.
Yeah.
It gets kind of sticky. So that student recognition of how many books they actually read did not align to your student outcome goal. Because your outcome goal was about students reading on or above grade level. You know, I could be in the 8th grade and I could read, 25 different Dr. Seuss books.
Yep.
But
I'm not on my grade level.
Unless
See?
those books were above the grade level. On or
And-
above the grade
Unless
level.
those books,
Above.
but we didn't designate that in the thing, did we?
No.
Yes,
So that's something to look for next time.
there was some.
Some of them, yeah, some of
Some
them.
of them?
Some of the,
They
there was
were
some.
a first grade student reading at a third grade level.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And then we
So
had.
some of the time.
Yeah.
Well, we're just going by what we see. And it could have been I don't know if it was in the minutes
Right.
at some point in time, it could have been said there.
Yeah,
So if
each
it was,
individual-
then that would line up. But that's what I'm saying, it's got to line up with the goal.
I mean, I think a distinction would be, I don't know what the selection criteria is for that program, let's say. It sounded like it's kind of general, like the principal.
It was AR, wasn't it? Was it
And we
accelerated?
discussed it,
No,
we discussed it with Dr. McMahon and Mr. Rana, is maybe next year, whenever we do something like this, we actually look at the growth in reading. Like, let's just stop students who actually show the highest growth. Went from 2nd grade to 5th grade.
By
right? From
participating
whatever-
in that
Because that's
input,
with them.
in that-
That would be
we're
more
below,
direct line
and now
to-
they're above grade level.
So you can recognize them
Don't have to
participating
maybe
in that
next time.
particular program, but the good thing is, if they grow, then that's directly
And they
aligned.
did, each individual
That's directly
principal
aligned.
had a synopsis of what the student had done. And on some of them, it did show that that particular student was like a second grader reading at a third grade, 8-month reading level.
So if you're seeing that kind of growth, then that's data. That's data, okay?
Where would y'all put the conservator's quarterly report input?
You know, we had a conversation about that. And I loved her report, by the way, guys. I just called her. So excited because she, you know, kudos to you guys for what you're doing, how the Lone Star governance is impacting it. Because, and I would have to ask AJ about this, because TEA has mandated that they do a monthly report. I would ask that those minutes be excluded from the percentages. Because that is something, it's not in statute, but TEA has mandated. So there could have been some ways that, it doesn't say that she has to do the report in person. We could do some reporting in board book and you know, putting some things in there. But I'm gonna give you a pass on that one. Until AJ
Well, I
tells
think
me.
it's helpful to have it, public.
I do too, I think it does too, but.
But I think that should count against you.
She said it has to be public?
Yeah, I asked her.
And so I'm gonna get clarification from AJ on that. If TEA is telling them that they have to do that and they have to do it public, I think that those, should be excused.
I do, I agree with
But it
that.
definitely, you were saying, like, it would fall into inputs though? Or that was just a discussion, you didn't really fall.
I think it would fall into inputs and outputs because she was talking some about the financial reports and some of the things that were going on and some things that were going on with
Also,
that.
she's kind of monitoring what you're doing.
Yeah.
And giving a report on what you're doing. So if we give a report of what the inputs are doing, then it's really kind of on it.
And because she was talking about the middle of the cycle, wasn't she? Where you are now and what you have to do to prepare for next year for your financial reports, getting them in on time and those types of things. So it's sort of like a monthly midterm report. So we're gonna take some of your concepts and remember that critical question that I asked you, those 10 words or less, get those back out.
What's that?
Those 10 words, those things that you wanted to accomplish. 10 words or less. That's your next one.
Yeah.
10 words or less. Take that. I've got you kind of set up with, you guys are gonna be a group of 3. You guys are gonna be partners and you guys are gonna be partners. You have markers. I want you to kind of look at your ideas and your concepts and I want you to write a student outcome. Not a student outcome goal, just a student outcome. You've talked about things that you wanted, you know, productive society, educated. Write me an outcome. Remember, what is an outcome? What students
I'll be able to.
know and are able to do. This is one group over here, one group here, one group here. Using your markers and your paper, write out a student outcome and you can kind of use your 10 words or less as a guide.
You look at me. My range is.
Students will be able to.
Sure.
And don't cheat and use your student outcome goals that you already have now.
What? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Because I saw that look in your eyes. Can't use anything that you have for a student outcome goal as it is stated today.
Based on
Stretch. Yeah, based on your 10 things. What is it? Students will be able to. Just write me one. Okay, you can't, no.
You gotta choose that.
Can't choose that.
I come up with something that we don't have, I guess, right?
I've got mine up
You
here.
can do math. Please function.
Students what? It's not no students range.
And then I had,
Just one now? Just one?
that puts student.
Just one will be fine.
You just be a math, do math, that's or about grade.
I would say that
Or.
Is that one mine?
Stars, and we want to maybe 50% of that.
That's for.
80%. Yes, to be least.
Oh, it's right here.
Increase, we want to have increased success in our.
So it has to be the end, usually that's an end of the year from the start.
So students are able to.
Okay.
Or 90%.
But is that what students know are able to do?
90% or more.
I'm confused at how we're supposed to use the 10 words.
Just kind of use that as an idea to brainstorm, but looking at what your vision is, what would be a student outcome related to
So
that
nice,
vision?
so students meet STAR, meet STAR requirements 10%.
Yeah, scores
More successful.
the start, on the math start.
So how are we gonna gauge?
We just make it something like that.
Scores, meet scores, STAR scores, right?
Yes, the math starts.
What are they, know and are able to do?
One would be to be able to increase our graduation rate.
STAR?
No,
Ninety-five,
STAA.
Now you're getting ahead of me. Students will be able to graduate.
So this comes out. Meet
Ready
math
for
STAR
it.
scores. Meet math STAR
Yes.
test.
You give them 90%.
Don't get the numbers in there yet.
No, no.
What you said, the outcome, was the outcome, meet 90%?
Well, students pass STAR.
To meet society's needs.
Students meet STAR.
I think she wanted.
We're gonna go
Take us
through.
through the step by step.
Oh.
That's right. So I need to be out of it.
I'm not going to adapt my training to what you know. You adapt your responses to what my training says you're supposed to do.
We have to graduate a.
Which is what you would never want to see a teacher do. Okay, so what do we have?
Well, I mean, do we need just one?
Just one.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Watts is gonna read ours, Ms. Watts.
90% of seniors graduating will graduate with college ready.
Graduate with college ready. What do you have?
Students will be able to graduate ready for college and career opportunities to meet society's needs.
Graduate for college ready to meet society's needs.
Students meet the math STAR test?
Students will be able to meet math STAR test. Okay, now keeping that in mind, go to the next one. Keeping that in mind, on your paper, I want you to identify what could possibly be one input and one output for that outcome goal. Identify what would be an input. Remember, inputs occur when? In the cycle?
One input and one and one?
Inputs at the beginning, outputs are in the middle to measure your progress, right? So give me one input, one output that would align to your student outcome that you just wrote.
Input program. Or maybe training.
Test prep?
No, input is more like a resource. It's maybe like usually we have a program called, I think we have, right?
Output is SAT.
Students meet math STAR test. This is the.
We can say providing, for example, providing response for every student, right? That would be an input. Providing a math coach or whatever.
A tutor.
Yeah, tutor, right. Those are resources. Those are
Presenting at the national.
to students who are scoring below or not on, scoring
Not all
below.
of them will be college.
The ACT is a predictor.
Yeah.
For previous year.
Just one, right?
Just do one input, one output. You are. Practice. Well, you talk. One input, one output.
Ready?
College.
Service preparation.
That would be your prep.
College prep.
Below.
Right. Courses.
Very easy.
STEM.
Yeah, oh, yeah, because, there you go, practice.
Output would be more like a
That's
benchmark.
correct. That's the little part that I'm missing.
Output would be more like a benchmark score.
Graduating with college.
Won't be evaluations, benchmark.
Yes,
So
it's
you do a benchmark. So
Oh,
benchmark.
yeah, correct.
Meet your benchmark.
Yeah, it could even be tutoring, it could be.
And so, that is your graduation. One of the inputs might be
We do what's called bundles every 6 weeks. It's a big program.
and the day
So it could be that. Bundle test, so
Okay, everybody ready?
Oh, several. Yeah.
Ready?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let's start with this group over here. Tell me your student outcome, your input, and your output.
Okay, the outcome would be 90% of seniors graduating will graduate college ready.
Seniors graduate college ready. Input.
The input will be SAT, ACT preparation.
Excellent.
And then the output would be practice assessments.
Yeah, PSATs. Would the PSAT tell you midstream if the students were on track to pass their SATs and ACTs? Yes. Awesome. Over here.
The outcome of students meet the Math STAR test. The input is provide tutors for students who performed below previous year, and then have the last one, which is mid-year benchmark. See,
Outcome is pass STAR. Input, we're gonna give the kids tutorials. Output is we're gonna see how those students perform on their benchmark and compare and see if they're actually making growth.
Very good, Robert. We may just put you in a classroom.
All right, over here, guys. Outcome.
Rock stars in here.
Okay, we put on the input was SAT, ACT test preps with rigor, class prep.
Oh, we did two different ones, just do that one. We did this
With
one.
the prep, ACT test prep.
SAT, ACT test prep, and what's your output?
And the output would be higher ACT and ACT scores.
Okay, that's an outcome. What would be the output? How would you measure, if you have preps, how would you measure mid-year how these things are
Through
doing?
their bundle tests and.
Bundle tests. Okay. So what the point we're trying to get is it's a process.
Oh,
You have-
we actually put outcomes as the number of students accepted and ready for college and or military increases. Oh, I thought that's what those things were.
Jumping ahead.
Sorry.
We're getting to see. You all are, I don't know who trained you guys to begin with, but that person has been very awesome.
She looked like you.
I
trained her.
So now we talk, so we have our inputs, outputs, and go ahead and give me your outcome.
The increase in students accepted and ready for college and or for military.
Okay, so increase of students accepted in college and career and the military. That's an outcome. Now we're gonna move to the next design, which is a goal. Why do we need goals? What might be the difference between an outcome and an outcome goal?
Measurable.
Measurable?
It's a tangible.
It's tangible, it's attainable.
Direction.
Direction. The reason that we're spending so much time on this whole process is because what the research shows for you guys as a board, there are three things, you can see me saying it there. There's three things that school boards do, behaviors of school boards that actually influence student achievement. One is creating student outcome goals. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about what does a goal look like, what does it need to have, how do we write one, and how do we create one. Because you're going to be, even though you already have them in place for the school district, we're going to be using that. You really need to understand that process. The second behavior is the constraints that you all have adopted. When we go through Lone Star Governance, you'll get a little bit more information on the constraints again and what was the rationale behind those constraints. And then the last piece is monitoring. So those are the pieces that we're going to go to that will lead us up to the break. We're going to go through what is a goal, what does it mean, we're going to look at some, we're going to look at some that are good, we're going to look at some that aren't, and then you're going to be using your papers to create your own. Okay? So let's go to goals. Goals have to be SMART. We mean by SMART that they are specific, measurable,
achievable,
realistic, and timely. There are also some other things that goals have to have. Does anybody else remember what those were?
student population, time by which they're achieved.
Deadline. Two more. Remember? Go to the next one. So it's one thing to say students are going to do good. But in order to get that SMART and to get it defined, we have to add in that baseline target deadline population. Where are your students today? Where do you want them to be in the future? Specifically, which students are you talking about? And by when? I've seen school districts that, we have our goals. Our goals span for 10 years. 10-year goal. Well, The problem with having a 10-year goal, you got a lot of people sitting around going, I'm gonna retire in 3. So that's really not my problem. So our goals need to be timely. We recommend 3 to 5 years. So we have that intense focus on those timeframes. Also, there's another thing. A lot of times, school districts say, oh yeah, we've got these goals. We've got these goals. We do so well on SAT. Our goal is, our SAT. Well, if you're already doing well on it, what's the purpose of having a goal? So if you really want your goals to challenge your organization, not to be so difficult that they can't be achieved, but to be a challenge to where you are, to stretch you guys out, and that it requires adult behaviors to change. Because if we still keep doing the same things that we've always done, the way that we've always did them, the way we've done them, we will still get what? The same, we will still get the same results. Okay, go on to the next one. So here are some examples.
Can I go back to, which is one piece you're talking about, goals?
Mm-hmm.
In your planning process, obviously you have all these, the population affects a lot of the processes, future processes.
Mm-hmm.
There's no population going to grow. Donor growth projections could be higher, which means more kids here or more kids somewhere else, depending again on how we project our student growth. So a 5-year benchmark for planning purposes or for goal purposes, how are they going to impact not just the students, but also our teachers? You were talking about teachers earlier, and that is, to me, they're at the forefront, obviously, of what we want our students to be affected by. So population growth affects that.
Yeah.
How do you tie that in under your SMART?
That's a very good question, and we get that quite a bit as we go through these things, because so many school boards are trained. This training is a little bit new on the focus on student outcomes, but everybody talks about those 5-year strategic plans. We've got to have a 5-year strategic plan. We must have a 5-year strategic. We've got to go. And so when you talk about the projections in enrollment and demographics, is that an input, output, or an outcome?
It would be an outcome.
A projection.
Projection would be an input.
It's an input, so that would be an input. So what we try to work with the school boards is, let's do our student outcomes and our goals first, under Lone Star governance, and then we take these goals of our overarching piece to align to our strategic plan. So when you're talking about those demographics and those populations, you're still planning for the future.
So you're doing backwards planning.
Exactly, and you know what the best teachers do?
Backwards plan.
Backwards planning. So it's backwards planning. Don't start with the
Got
and
it.
so many superintendents that have gone through this said that had a strategic plan. What they did when they went through Lone Star governance, they tried to make their Lone Star governance fit their strategic plan, and it didn't work. And they said, we wish we had Lone Star governance first before we did our strategic plan. So because you guys are at a really good place, because you have your student outcome goals, you have those things in place, you have your first monitoring report, and as we get these things going throughout this year, you will see through this year and the next year, we'll start to fold in those other pieces that go in with the strategic plan. So we don't throw out a strategic plan. A strategic plan is necessary, it's very important, but in order to have a good strategic plan that will influence your student outcomes, you gotta have your
But
student
it
outcomes
also has to be realistic, and it has to be attainable, right?
I've got a question for Mr. or Dr. Azzi. Our student outcome goals, are they on the website where I can bring them up? Because I'm new, so I'm not sure where y'all have those.
We submitted them, and Dr. Ramirez can talk a little bit more to TASB to put it on our policy online, and we've been going back and forth
Yes,
with.
we have a little bit of battle because we've added more, and their plan is not to have it on online policy, but to have it as an additional document. We're still pushing for it to be there, but in a different format, because they're very format-oriented folks.
So we submitted to them, we've been going back and forth with them because they would say, okay, only can do this, like, well, no, we have to change it this way. And so we are gonna put them, to answer your question, Dr. Valdez, we're gonna put them in policy online, that's.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm gonna put my 2 cents in. because this is your AE local policy,
Right.
not legal. TASB will definitely define your legal policy. You will not deviate from TASB legal policy, but local policy is your policy. If you want to put in policy that the sky is purple, you can put the sky is purple in your local
No, I was
policy.
just wondering where they were so that I could read them, because I don't know.
And I will make you a copy and we'll give it to you.
So I know that they're working through that, but I did,
You're not the only school system that's going through that.
With TASB, yeah, they've been going back up, they've been
That's just like,
difficult. And
we've
we
done
pay
this
for
way
their
forever,
services.
we're gonna continue to do it this way forever.
yeah, so they just need to be,
Those
just,
are the same with the district improvement plan and campus improvement plans still, those are.
now those don't go through TASB local.
They don't go.
Those do not go into
Policy
policy.
online is,
No, no, I'm just saying the student outcome goals.
should be aligned, correct? Is that what you're saying? Yes,
Yes.
yes, absolutely, correct. And it should be
Yes,
also
and
aligned even with the campus reform.
The campus
Yeah,
improvement.
that's the next step I know I saw in your weekly update or something, is that aligning the district and the campus improvement
Yes.
plans to the student outcome goals.
Correct.
Now that we
When we did the BOI for TPAS with our principal, we met with them and we talked to them about your goals should be aligned, your campus goals
Yes.
should be aligned to our board goals, because our district goals should be, everybody should be like.
Can you imagine how powerful that will be?
Yeah, it is, that's really, I mean, we may not get it 100% this year, but that's the.
So, would you expect your high school campuses at Donna North to have a, goal on students K through 2 reading on grade level? No, it doesn't apply to them, does it? Would you expect your pre-K campuses to have a goal aligned to, college and career readiness? Not really. So not all of your campuses are gonna have the exact same goals. They might have goals that fall underneath this umbrella, and then they align things that they're going to put into place in progress measures.
Not a goal, but maybe a strategy, because you may get kids that have not been schooled in Mexico,
Mhm.
that have never been educated, they come into your
Yeah.
high school, and policy, you place them according to age, they may not be at a high school level. So you would still have to have some type of strategy.
Correct. They can do, you're right, you can do sub-input and get outputs. For example, elementary school students can visit colleges. And that could be an input for eventually get the outcome in the high school. Yeah.
Just like Lori said, imagine how powerful when your principals are having that collaborative conversation.
Yeah.
That college career readiness really isn't just a goal for the high school. There's some things that we could do at the elementary campuses as well. So these are the AE locals that you are trying to get through, and you just need to tell TASB that this is what we have decided as a board we want, so put it in.
Yeah.
That's it, there's no more questions about it. But I think, Dr. Valdez, you had a really good question. Are these goals on the website outside of AE local? Can we, my recommendation is on your website, you have a link to Lone Star Governance on your website. So everything that we do in terms to Lone Star Governance, your goals, your student outcome goals, all of that stuff is accessible on that website. And it provides evidence of what you do. So we're gonna jump through and go ahead and just do some practice one with these goals, because I know you know this pretty well. Here are some examples. Percentage of graduates in second year post-secondary will increase from 35 to 70% by August. What's the population on here?
Graduates or?
Graduates in?
Second year.
Okay. What
Post-secondary.
is the baseline?
2022. 35%.
35, what's the target?
70.
What's the deadline?
August 2020.
This one, what's the deadline?
August 2020.
What's the target?
25%.
What's the population?
I completed associate's degree.
Associate's degree? And what's the baseline?
Baseline is 5%.
5%. These are all excellent examples. Now let's see if you can identify what's missing. Let's play a little game. Students will improve academically.
By numbers, they.
There's no
everything.
deadline.
Nothing.
There's no,
Students will improve academically.
Great.
Yay, great. Yeah. The percentage persisting in second year post will grow by 5% each year.
the target, like
Yeah.
from.
Well, that is the target. They will grow by 5%.
Not the target, like from 5%,
No, it's the
25%.
The deadline.
No.
The baseline, and there's no, Well, each year is kind of a deadline, but when you're talking about, okay, they will grow by 5% each year for how many years? How many years are you gonna carry this out? How long is it gonna go? And it's real different if, my school is at 3% and increase to 5% to 8 next year, or what if we're at 95%?
Yep.
Is that really a goal that stretches you? No. Number of high-performing campuses will increase by 5, increase to 5 by 2021. What's missing? Will increase to 5.
Baselines are there.
It's got the target, it's 5, and it's gonna increase to 5, but it doesn't have baseline. Real difference in the stretching of this goal if you have only 1 going to 5, but if you have 4 going to 5, is that challenging enough for you? All of these things play into having quality student outcome goals. Percentage of having completed associate degree being awarded from an industry certificate by graduation will grow from 10 to 30%. What's missing?
The year.
The deadline. Are we gonna do this in 1 year? Are we gonna do it in 5 years? Are we gonna do it in 10 years? We're gonna do it in 20 years. Go ahead and go to the next one. So, what I want you to do is take your outcome, your student outcome, now make it into a student outcome goal. Don't worry about numbers. We don't have the data here in front of us. Just fudge numbers. But I want a student outcome goal that has X to Y by Z. X to Y by Z. Take your student outcome and make it into a student outcome goal. Just what you tried to do at the beginning.
Say 90%.
No, but for that piece,
Would increase, I guess, right?
High school seniors.
Whatever.
from 40% to right now. Just give numbers.
90% to 95%.
Whatever, June, July, usually that's what
Prior, we can give a start date.
I said I should have gone to that over here.
Here's your population, students mastering the STAR. There's your baseline where you are now.
I'm gonna have this at 100. That's a future goal.
I think it's more.
Well, see, and when you your AE local, they will know because your adoption date of your AE local is posted at the bottom.
Tiger it.
But we also have them.
Yeah.
We have,
See if there's, I can read it.
so we have them for each year. You see how we do annual targets? So you, student 18, 19, you can take this. you know.
Okay, so you got 30.
So we have all that stuff. Yeah, we all like broke them.
Okay, who wants to share?
Mrs. Watts is gonna share.
Ms. Watts.
Okay, the goal is the percentage of students graduating college ready will increase from 90% to 95% by May 2019.
By May 2019.
Aggressive.
Ooh, very good.
Aggressive.
What do you have?
We have, I think it's better, but the average ACT scores for high school seniors will increase from 19 to 23 by 2021.
Or? That'll work because you can write goal progress measures to that. What do you have?
I put, we put, students meet the Math STAR test from 40% to 90% by July 2022.
Do they have a baseline? Do they have a student population? Yeah, meets STAR. Do they have a baseline?
Yes.
What was it?
40%.
The first number.
To, the first number, very
To
good.
90%.
To 90% by
By July 2022.
2022.
Is that realistic?
It is.
Could be.
Sister Nana's gonna make it happen.
That's right, you get them involved.
Okay, so, we've talked about inputs, outputs, and outcomes for a very, very long time. And we've discussed student outcomes. And now we have put them into student outcome goals. But, go ahead and go on to the next slide, Lori. But we have to, does anybody remember what was that third behavior I said board members do that influence student achievement? Monitoring student outcome goals. It's one thing to have these wonderful goals, but if no one pays any attention to them, then we're not going to get what we see. So go ahead and go to the next one. So here's the philosophy. When it comes to board members in monitoring student outcomes and student outcome goals, it's reasonable to expect that what happens in the boardroom will be echoed in the classroom. So if you have a student outcome goal based on literacy and the students who are reading at or above grade level, and you know that they've already received a progress report, I as the teacher, I as the principal, especially those pre-K, K, and elementary campuses, what's going to be my laser focus?
Literacy, reading level.
Yeah, my literacy and reading level is going to be my laser focus. If I have a laser focus on college and career readiness and how many students are graduating with all of the different things that you have in your goal, a high school principal, what's going to be my focus? College career readiness. If I have outcome goals for my math and science and my kids in grades 3 through 8, what principals 3 through 8, what are they going to be focusing on? Math and science. And if I'm focusing on it as a principal, who's focusing on it in the classroom? Teachers. And hopefully you got a principal that is gifted enough to spread that across the campus, so it's not just this math, this teacher, that we cross curriculum and everybody plays a part and plays a role in this. So just because you guys are monitoring these goals, you are setting the standard for your district and what the laser focus is going to be on your campuses. Because what gets measured gets done. What gets measured gets done. Progress helps us to know which adults are improving student outcomes and which ones are not. It goes back to those inputs, outputs, and outcomes. Through our monitoring, we can go, you do not want to go until August and say, we want our percentage of our students on STAR to increase from here to here, and then in August, Mr. Rashad gets up and gives reports, oh, well, we didn't make it. Too bad.
Is there a way to an instrument that we can use to monitor it quarterly?
We have that. We have that. Go ahead and Lori, go to the next one. So when we talk about goal progress measures, this is kind of like what you saw in your first monitoring report. We reported to you the goal of students in reading at or above grade level. We showed you what it was back in age 2017 and then 2018, even before we started this. Even before we started this, so you got a little bit of a baseline there. Then we showed you what happened at the beginning of the year this year. Some of them went up, some of them went down. A lot of things can cause that. Over summer reading, we were looking at grade levels. Our kindergartners are now our first grade. I watched the report. I thought they did a really good job of walking you through that and walking you through those pieces. But your job as a board member during those reports is to determine, you all voted on it at the end, I agree with this report, and you should have. You should have agreed with it. But as monitoring reports go through, I want you to look with a lot of scrutiny. Are we on track? Because we're reporting these goal progress measures to you 4 times a year. Because we don't want to get to the end and say, oh darn, we didn't make it. So if we have a, next time it's CCMR, right? CCMR. So you're going to get a report on CCMR. You're going to get it where we are at the beginning. Then the next time you're getting one on the middle. What are your questions you need to be asking? What inputs are we using?
My
What are the
concern would be,
inputs?
is that report going from you to the teachers, which is where it needs to go. At the end of the day, you know, the teachers are the ones that, I mean, you know, hey, it's fine and dandy for us to know it, but, you know, is that report that you just gave us that says, hey, you know, we might be a little bit behind the eight ball here, let's kick it up a notch. Is that getting back to the teachers?
But I think that needs to go to him, and then he goes to them.
You can distribute that out.
I mean, that's how I think it should be.
And we share with the principal and then the teachers, the directors, so it's like a whole communication.
We making even posters, bigger posters with our calendar and goals and everything like that, we're gonna put in every campus, because that's supposed to be the
Yeah.
focus.
Right.
Everybody's focus.
Dr. Azzi, the only question that I have, and maybe Mr. Nana can probably answer it. I noticed that when I came to that board meeting, when y'all did the student outcome goals, like for example, it says here the percentage of kindergarten, second grade students will increase from
Yes.
whatever to whatever. And let's say we're at 52% right now. But last year at this same time, where were we? Because now it gives me a baseline. Are we above where we were last year? So have we seen improvement from one year to another?
Yeah, it depends upon the grade level. Kindergarten, we are on track. We are a little behind in first grade. Second grade, we are on track.
But see, it would be interesting to see a comparison of 2 years. Like second grade.
To give you a
Last year we
baseline.
had 50%, this year we have 60%.
Yeah, I think what
So I've seen we've gone up.
a lot of, some of what we showed was apples and oranges,
Yeah.
because our first graders this year
In the second
were
grade.
our kindergartners last year.
It's a cohort, you have to look.
Yeah, so I think that there can be some reporting about where we are per grade level, because it's one thing, there's two reasons why you want to look at it that way. One reason why you want to look at it by a particular grade level, where they were last year, where they were this year, even though the kids are different, that gives you an instructional focus. Is that instruction maintaining at that grade level? Are we still doing was there a shift? Did we change
Was there a new
teachers?
program?
Was there a new program? Was there a new teacher? But you also want the cohort, like, okay, last year at the beginning of the year, our kindergartners were here. But as first graders, that's where they are here. So there are a couple of different things that we can report. So you need to ask those, you're doing exactly what I want you to do with these monitoring reports. That is your job to ask these questions. And even though, you know, they can touch on the cohorts and they can touch on that can all be added into it. And they should always have the evidence in your board book. They should always have the reports to show you that the data they are showing on that graph is accurate data. Now, are we gonna spend time in the board meeting going through the board book and all these reports? No, that's your job. Read your board book before you come to the board meeting. Come to the board meeting prepared. What we want to do is we want to take this board meeting away from time spending like used to be happening in this district before a year ago last March. There were long board meetings talking about things that didn't even align to student outcomes. And it was all just asking questions, asking questions, asking questions. We are going to be putting processes in place where you're going to get your minute, you're going to get your board agendas early. You're going to be able to ask your questions to the superintendent, email them. He's going to get you all of the answers to them. If you have another question, you can go directly to the central office person, get the answer. So when you come to the board meeting, to the agenda item, there really shouldn't be a whole lot of discussion. You might want to point out a thing or two. Alicia, I think you did a really good job in the last board meeting explaining to the community about the monitoring report and that you're going to be focusing more time on student outcomes, that we're going to be doing this. And so the community is going to see a lot less time talking about HVAC and more time talking about this. Even though, believe me, air conditioning is important.
Yeah. Quality of life.
Yeah, but we're trying to
Comfort
make
level
these
in
shifts
it.
and take these shifts through. So these goal progress measures are critical. These monitoring reports are absolutely critical to what you're trying to achieve.
Can I ask you one, you started to say, here are some of the questions we should be using during this.
Mhm.
You said one of them what are the inputs we were using? What were some of the other ones?
Oh, what are the inputs that we're using? Wow, that was a lot of growth. What are the strategies that we're seeing that's working? You know what? We're not seeing, are we really on track to meet this by the end? What are we going to adjust? What changes are we making? Because Lori and I, as administrators and principals, we can tell you there were a lot of adjustments that our board members heard about mid-year but didn't understand. Because when it got to Christmas and I had a 3rd grade math teacher that I had been working with and wasn't cutting it, what do you think I did for 2nd semester? I switched teachers. So what did the board hear? Ms. McMahon just switched these teachers for no reason whatsoever. The way things are going now, you're gonna have that understanding when these things happen. You're gonna understand when these changes are being made. You're gonna know why, because you're gonna know the data, you're gonna know the inputs, you're gonna know what the expected outputs are. So you don't have to, and when a person in the community comes to you and say, why did Principal McMahon do that? What is going to be your response?
We had to align ourselves.
What's your response?
Go see the superintendent.
Your response? Say that.
Talk to the superintendent.
Talk to the superintendent. That is not your job to explain.
The only thing that I think that I've seen, and it's important, obviously, and at least I alluded to this earlier, is the educational piece to our community. And I think the importance of that is, we may understand it here because obviously you guys are sharing this with us. I think the community as a whole does not understand that process. So the educational process does not only start with us, but also has to end outside of the school board. Because we can talk all about our outcomes for our students, but if the parent does not understand it and comes to him about an issue, how progress is being done, parents sometimes don't want to really get involved, for lack of better words. But I think sharing that information and getting them to understand how these are affecting students.
And that has to be your all's agreed guidelines. That, you know, that is not our role, that is not our job. And our response for every one of us will always be, parent comes, I have a problem with this teacher. Have you spoken to the principal? Have you spoken to the principal? Go speak to the principal. Not, I will call the principal for you. I will go with you to talk to the principal. Just, you need to talk to the teacher. Have you spoken to the teacher? No, you haven't spoken to, oh, you need to speak to the teacher. They come back, oh, you know, the lady is still crazy. The woman is still crazy. She's cuckoo. She, you know, wears these weird clothes, and my kid's not learning. Oh, okay, well, thank you for speaking to the teacher. Have you talked to the principal? Yeah. Oh, you haven't spoken to the principal? Well, okay, go speak to the principal. Go speak to the principal. They come back. Well, the principal doesn't care. He doesn't know what's going on. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Have you spoken to the superintendent? Okay, go speak to the superintendent. Okay. Come back. Superintendent didn't listen to me. Oh, you spoke to the superintendent? And he gave you a decision? Okay, I support that decision. I'll go through that. That is that chain of command that you go through. And once you go outside of that chain of command, that's when you create issues among your board. So it has to be an agreed upon philosophy that we have hired an education expert. We have outlined for this education expert what our expectations are in the term of role of improving student outcomes, which is the reason why we exist. Our job is not to tell him how to do his job. Our job is to let him do his job and support him in doing that job. And it sounds easy, but sometimes you have to really take a look back at yourself and saying, am I doing some things that really are not promoting that? But once you get a board that's all in sync with that philosophy, amazing things happen.
And
in
all
a
of that
school
is
setting.
in legal policy. I mean, when a board member comes in, read your freaking legal policy, because it's in here, and it tells you what.
Well, one of the things that we're gonna be doing over the next year or so is we're gonna be doing, some work with your policy. We're gonna be doing some work with your policy and looking at your policy and what needs to be taken out of your policy. That's really not your role, that may have been implemented by previous boards, and doing some revamping of the policy. So goal progress measures, any questions about the importance of goal progress measures? Okay, Lori, go ahead and get the next one. The one thing I want to point out, and Lori did this, we did this presentation a couple weeks ago in Nashville. So you see we have the goal here. The graduates completing an associate's degree awarded by an industry certificate, 25 to 50 by 2022. So we have 3 goal progress measures. In order to make sure that happens, we're going to track the coherence of CTE classes, also SMART, right? We're going to monitor the percentage of sophomores and juniors who have passed at least 2 college courses. And we're going to look at the 7th graders who did the end of course tests. So all of these things, if we get kids in our CTEs, if we get kids to go take a dual credit college courses, and we have our elementary, our intermediate schools passing EOC, will that goal be achieved? Absolutely, that goal will be achieved by that time. So there has to be this alignment piece. It all has to start to flow in together. Now, you all have the copies of the AE local?
Yes.
Okay, so let's dive in, let's look at yours. Sorry, my husband's forgetting that, that was my phone. Probably calling saying, there's no food in the house. And I'm like, I'm here and done.
I'm working.
Okay, so take a look at your goals. Look at those progress measures. I want you to take goal 1. I want you guys to take goal 3. I want you guys to take goal 2. And I want you to tell me, what is your feeling about alignment between the goal progress measures and the goal? And why? Why is it good? Why is it not good?
Okay, you want us to take our goals and do what?
You do goal 1. Just
Yeah.
goal 1, and then the goal progress measures that go with it. Are the goal progress measures in here?
Agreement.
Yeah, right here. No, just do goal 1. That's all the one you're gonna do.
Right, correct.
Okay?
Yeah, correct. 3, and then you look at the back side here, which is,
Yeah, it has the GPMs below it. Flip it.
Using assessments that are aligned to this.
see, we're not gonna meet that requirement. Like I said already.
College area or the?
The third one?
It's like 1090%.
Which one?
So this one's up to
I mean, it's
2,000.
going to the end of the cycle, Plus minimum.
At the end of this kind of 76, 80.
GPM by 2023, they're gonna go from 19 to 43, 9 to 20, 38 to 60. But mathematically, that will get them from 43 to 90 because these are different indicators.
18, 19, they're gonna go from 72
Yeah,
to
that's-
76. Yeah, and then
I have
from
to go back
19,
and
20,
look
it's gonna
at
go
that.
to 80. And then the following year, it's
Yeah,
gonna go to
CCMR is a tough one
85%.
because you've got different indicators and how they all fold in.
80.
And if you have any questions about that, ask her, because that's her level of expertise.
Go ahead, different
See,
points.
and then the last year's of us were 90%, so by the year 22,
Anything dealing with high school is what I'm doing.
We're okay.
yeah, they should be.
90%.
I guess it's the 9%.
Language.
Okay, so let's hear from goal 1. What are your thoughts?
I think it's an achievable goal.
You think it's an achievable goal?
Yes.
What do you like, about your goal progress measures?
Actually, they're going by 4 percentage points per year, starting with 18, 19, and then the last year it's only a 2 percentage gain, but they'll be at 88.
And are you noticing those annual targets?
Pardon me?
You notice those annual targets in there? Why do you
Yes.
think we have annual targets as opposed to the deadline for the overarching goals?
Measures, or a monitoring
The
system.
monitoring system.
Each year. I mean, even like, you know, I want to lose 30 pounds by my son's wedding next September. I can put that off forever. But in order for me to do that, if I really want to do that, then I need to change my eating habits, I need to change what I'm doing, and my goal is maybe this month to lose 4 pounds. That's still,
Yes, it is, because we're gonna do it together, and we got goal progress measures.
so those annual targets are real important because it seems like such a leap. I'm like, oh my gosh, you want me to go from 43% to 90%? You know, it's almost defeating before you even get started, but say, yeah, 43, but this year I only want you to do this much. And then next year we're gonna do this much. And next year we're gonna do this much. Goal 2, who had goal 2?
We did.
Okay, what do you know?
That the language, the assessments, it matches the overall assessment being used.
Is there alignment?
Yeah, alignment, and then there's annual targets for each one. It's good.
It's right, 5%.
It's clearly divided by grade level.
Goal 3?
Same thing. I mean, there's no difference. I mean, the only thing here is, that I saw different was since each of the goals, the percentage, obviously tells you a different year by year date. But doing it all together, it gives you the total amount of a percentage at the end of the 3 years period, since it's broken down by each GPA. So.
Let me tell you, it's a very easy thing to read when it looks nice and pretty in an AE local package. Was it that easy to do? It took a long, long time. Revisions after revision. I can't tell you. Okay, I'm not gonna be at the board meeting, but if you have a question, just text me. I'm gonna be right there. I mean, phone calls, conversations coming down. It looks so nice and simple on paper, but you guys did a really, really, really good job. You all have excellent student outcome goals, and you have excellent goal progress measures. So give yourself a pat on the back.
I don't know whether, you know, one of the things that I remember when we were doing this is I asked the directors to get some input, to get them to commit, and ask them, is this something that we can obtain? And they were just like, I guess I put them in the spot.
I saw that. I was jumping out of my seat. I was like, my husband was watching a football game, and I was like, he goes, what game are you watching?
You were
I'm
watching
a
a
board
board
meeting.
instead of
I'm watching a board meeting. Excellent. You asked exactly the question I wanted to hear. Guys, you know, how do you feel? Is this attainable? It sounds great to me, but I'm not gonna be the one, is this an attainable goal? So I'm gonna give you it. You did a good job. So all of this is tied around this monitoring calendar, which is critical, which you saw in your presentation. And then the monitoring report, which we gave the format to. All of your monitoring reports are gonna be in that similar format. You're gonna see the goal, you're gonna see the goal progress measure, you're gonna see where they were 2 to 3 years ago, where we are in this first report, then the next quarter, and the next quarter, and the next quarter.
And this is a way that it's done by TEA through the Lone Star Governance. This is exactly the measures that everyone goes by now.
That's the formula. The goals are yours.
Right, I know about measures, the formula is.
Yeah, but everyone who goes through Lone Star Governance, well, let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. Everyone who goes through Lone Star Governance that chooses to do the work, a lot of people have gone through it, but because the work is hard. They will tell you the work is
Hours
hard.
and months.
You all think that 2-day workshop is hard. The work behind that 2 days is 10 times harder than the workshop. So those that have chosen to do two things, chosen to do the work, and those that have chosen to work with coaches to help facilitate them through, move through Lone Star governance at a much more rapid pace. We have had several school districts that went through Lone Star governance a year ago, some of them 2 years ago. They're like, "Well, our goals are not very good." So they're having to hit restart and start all over again from scratch, redesigning their student outcome goals and going forward. So you guys did it smart. You started, and you jumped into the work immediately. So these monitoring reports, these calendars, the thing I'm just gonna reemphasize to you guys as a board, pay attention to that monitoring report. Look through the data before you come. Know what you're going to hear. You know, so many times I see staff present information to a board about something, and you know, hey, you want to report on this? I want to report on reading. Great, I can give you a wonderful report on reading. I'm going to pick out all the things that we're doing really, really well in reading, and that's what I'm going to report to you. There's no snow blowing on this one. You can't change the numbers. It's either we're making progress or we're not.
Well, you can't change the focus either. The focus is set. One of the things that I think we kind of went over was the fact we were talking about inputs, okay, we're talking about outputs. Your assessments, we're getting down to looking at data. A lot of the hard work comes from that data piece, where you're having to really actually study your data to basically say, these are the needs of our kids. So your outcome goals are not going to be like anybody else's. They're going to be specific to the needs of your children. When we're talking about those outputs, and we're talking about student outcomes, those student outcome goals, we talked about goal progress measures. Goal progress measures can either be the inputs, meaning that we've got some programs, but that are giving us outputs, okay? So those goal progress measures are going to be what we've been talking about earlier, those output pieces, as we go along to determine if we're really getting where we need to be as far as our student outcome. Now, there are types of assessments that you guys will be using. I'm sure your administrators are using these types of assessments. There are those that are formative assessments. They're in the midst of an instructional cycle that measure student learning narrowly tailored to specific student expectations. So if we are looking at an academic need, okay, we've got an academic goal from here to here by here, this population, we've got certain student goal progress measures that we're looking at continually. Pretty much, you're going to have some type of formative data. Formative means that it is forming, that we are ongoing, we are assessing, and we're looking at it as we go. Formative assessments are usually, I know in our world, we have those turnaround schools. We had them doing 3-week mini assessments. We had them doing 6 weeks. From here to here within your scope and sequence, we test. Let's look at that data, fold it back in, okay? So that's what your administrators are doing, okay, with those formative assessments. Many times they are teacher-made. But here again, they must be at the rigor, they must be written at the rigor of the student expectation, and your administration is making sure, that's an administrative world, they're making sure that that's happening, so that the formative information that you get when you're looking at those goal progress measures, then we can rely on it. We can say it's reliable, we can trust it, okay? Your interim assessments are the same way, except that they go over usually a longer span of time. That interim assessment may be something that you take in the middle of the semester, Again, maybe at the semester and right possibly even before the actual assessment that will give us our overall outcome, okay? So it's gonna predict the summative, which is what? Our overall outcome. That summative assessment in our world in Texas is called the STAR. It's called something different everywhere else, but here it's called the STAR. And STAR is a very rigorous assessment. Have we just now gotten a great curriculum? No, we've really had a pretty darn good curriculum in Texas. The issue was our test was way down here. Our assessment was way low. So guess what? Everybody goes, oh gosh, we gotta make this assessment. So we're teaching here to the assessment. And we've been teaching the student expectations, then the assessment piece would have been really easy. So now teachers are learning how to do that. And do not underestimate teachers. When they are taught how to do, they will rise to the occasion. I've seen it over and over and over again. So these formatives, plus the instruction, if they're written at the rigor of the student expectation, teachers will teach to that. Kids will grow. And your goal progress measures will be very trustworthy. So these questions you ask, this information you get as you go on the GPMs, you can trust that it's giving you good information and helping your administration decide on which way they need to go and what they need to do.
Let's
It's
go
time
to
for
this
break.
favorite slide, yeah. Y'all want a
Let's
break?
take a break.
I'm not gonna ask you if you want 5, 10, or 15, because we're not gonna play that.
No,
game
we're just
tonight.
gonna go.
10 minutes.
We had some food. I agree there.
10-minute break.
There's some food.
10 or 15 do this training.
It is good.
We say, you know, Texans want an accountability system. And so many times people on boards go, who told you that? Who told you Texans want an accountability system? But accountability is very important. It really does matter. I mean, all systems, everything that we need to do is we need to get feedback to inform progress. Whether if we're looking at students reading on grade level, or if we're at Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers trying to lose weight, that feedback loop is critical. And you know what? Your community that you serve, the taxpayers, the parents, they have a right to know. They deserve to know what's going on in the schools with their children. And what we have found in research is that when students are being assessed, their performance increases. So when the students knows that they're being monitored and they're, I mean, how many times are you like, okay, guys, next week we're gonna have a test, you know, not all kids, but some kids are like, I need to study, I need to prepare. With accountability, it helps our leaders set goals and make those decisions that are aligned to those goals. That's the whole compass of what we do in Lone Star Governance, what you guys are doing here in Donna, and what we are trying to get done all across the place. So, accountability. There are 3 things that we need to know on accountability. TEKS, STAR, and A through F. So TEKS. Texas at high expectations for all students. Those are underneath our TEKS. They tell us exactly what students know and are able to do, which is a definition of a what?
Student outcome.
Which is a definition of a student outcome. We want those clear objectives. So why even have the TEKS at all?
Guided teaching and instruction.
And curriculum. Teaching and instruction tells us what we're supposed to be doing, right? Yeah. You know, it's like, without the TEKS, it'd be like, okay, here's a book. Go do what you want. It puts us all on the same time.
How long have we had the TEKS?
I think
They've been around
forever.
Not forever. I remember.
No, I mean forever, like for many years. The
forever.
assessment has been changed.
They had they had the EEs before they had the TEKS.
Well, that was like 15, was it more than 10
Be
years
careful.
ago?
Be careful.
I mean,
I was around when the EEs
I
were
know
there.
the TEKS were back in 1995.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
So really that hasn't been around that long, like 95?
Maybe 3 years.
Yeah, I know, because I was working with a school.
I mean, before it didn't happen.
No,
they knew nothing, they said go through the textbook.
So here's a math team. And that was the problem. Yeah, it really was. Here's the textbook, and the teacher said, okay, chapter 1, here we go. And then some teachers were like, I don't like chapter 1, so I'm gonna start with chapter 2. And there was just no continuity, and we were creating so many gaps with our kids.
Yep.
So they spent a lot of times, and actually, you know, outside of Texas, you have this thing called the Common Core. Which Common Core has some really good stuff, but actually I think side by side, ours are much more demanding and have a much higher level of rigor. So here's a 3rd grade TEK in math that tests, that represents algebraic reasoning. Students should be able to represent 1 and 2-step problems involving addition and subtractions, whole numbers to 1,000 using pictorial models, number lines, and equations. So what this tells me as a teacher, I have a lot to do. First, I have to teach my students how to do algebraic reasoning in 1-step problems. And I have to teach it in these 3 different ways. I have to teach it using pictorial models, I have to teach it using number lines, and I have to teach it using equations. And I gotta go up to 1,000. Once I get them doing 1-step problems, then I need to introduce them into what? 2-step problems. So it really does an excellent job of outlining what teachers need to be teaching. When you, as board members, are talking to people and you're on campuses, look for these TEKs and objectives. And look at them very critically. And, you know, what's going on in the classroom? Is it really, you know, aligning? Are they doing these things? So here's an example of a student that shows a 2-step equation. Because first they have to add, and then they have to subtract. And are we using numbers up to 1,000? Yes. So critical skill. Go on to the next one.
And they were created in 1995 district. You're right.
She's right.
Well, you were right.
I don't even remember what I was doing in 1995.
Because it wasn't that the, when did they pass the No Child Left Behind?
Oh, no, that's
Oh, that's-
2001.
2001, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
That was under
Bush.
George Bush. Georgie
Junior?
Jr.
So we talked about this 5 plus 3 minus 1,000 is 700. Why is that important? Why is it important that our kids know how to do this?
Basic. They're basic.
It's basic and it builds to,
Algebra?
it builds to a higher level. Then remember, this is 3rd grade. We're not gonna give them Pythagorean theorem at this point, or at that particular level. But if they don't understand this, are they gonna be able to do Algebra 1?
No.
No, absolutely not. So our TEKs do an excellent job of outlining for us how we're supposed to, our student outcomes. Our TEKs really instructionally are our student outcomes. What do our students know and are able to do? So the next step is the STAR test. So we have the TEKs that really pull out and identify our student outcomes. But you know, our STAR test, remember that saying, trust but verify. I trust that you did this at my house, but I trust that you laid my tile down correctly. But before I give you my check, I'm going to verify that I can walk on my tile. Make sense? So basically, that's all STAR is. STAR is a way for us to verify that our students can do what our teachers say that they have taught them. That's the basic concept of STAR.
And your teachers are teaching these student expectations that are under these TEKs. And know that they're having to work very hard to do that. It's not, just like you're writing student outcome goals and goal progress measures, this is not an easy thing to do. It is difficult to go through. You saw all the different ways they have to teach it. So it definitely, teaching is a very, very difficult job these days because they're doing it right.
You're next.
Oh, I am? Okay, this is an actual STAR question. One of the things that we wanted to know too, that
The student expectations are now, remember I talked about it a few minutes ago, is that they are now really aligned with the test. In years past, back when we had the TEKS coming into play, back in 1995, we had the TOS test, okay? The test, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I could be an exemplary school because I could teach kids that couldn't read how to pass that test. Strategy. Do they know anything? No, Johnny still couldn't read.
Teaching to the test.
But dadgum, we were exemplary. So, we were not teaching the student expectations at the depth that they were written. They've always been there. And they've changed over time to become a little bit more rigorous, but the basics have always kind of been there. So had we been doing that, really teaching, taking apart these student expectations and teaching them at the rigor of the verbs, okay? Had we been doing that, then we would not have children today or adults today that can't make change. That can't read stop signs, you know, or they definitely know nothing about history. Ask who George Washington is, they don't know. He was some white-headed guy that married Martha. I don't know, but I'm just saying, because we did not teach at the depth of the SE, our students, we did them a tremendous disservice. Now, wow, how many years has it been? I said 1995, yeah.
23.
Let's talk about how old I am. 1995 is when this all began, and we are just now, okay, what, the last 5 years or so? Just now, yeah, getting an assessment that is truly aligned with the TEKS and the student expectations. What they've done is they actually take an SE and they turn it into a question. What they do. This is an actual STAR question. Art teachers, so let's look at 3.5a. Represent 1 and 2-step problems involving addition and subtraction of whole numbers to 1,000. Notice you have to teach it with pictorial models, you have to teach it with number lines, and you have to teach it with equations.
Does it say solve?
No.
Doesn't say solve 1 and 2-step problems. It says what?
What's the verb?
Represent.
Represent, that's right. So, when you go into a classroom, when your administrators go into that classroom, they're going to see this written on the board and they're going to say, okay, what that teacher's doing, are the activities aligned with that verb? Are they doing activities that represent 1 and 2-step problems? Okay, so let's see the question. This actually aligns. This is an actual STAR question. The art teacher had 736 crayons. She threw away 197 broken crayons, then she bought 150 more crayons. Which equation shows how to find the number of crayons that art teacher has now? Okay? Which one did they use in the test? Which one?
Pictorial model, number line, or equation.
An equation, right. Could it have been actually a pictorial model that they would have to come up with the answer? Yes, it could have. So you never know how it's going to happen on this test. You never know if you're going to see a pictorial model. You never know if the student's going to see a number. You never know if it's going to be an equation. So as a teacher, you've got to teach all parts of it. And we weren't doing that before because we didn't have to. Now we do. But it is a hard work for teachers, but in the long run, they feel so much of an accomplishment because their kids are really learning. STAR is designed for measuring student mastery of the TEKS. For example, the STAR math test is designed to describe how much math students know and are able to do given grade level expectations. It is not designed, it's not, it's one of my pet peeves with some of my school, is that they will use it as a formative assessment. What did I tell you guys a few minutes ago what was a formative assessment?
On the way. It's like little benchmarks that you do through.
Take a second with your partners and look at that not. What is STAR not designed for? Think about, why is this important? Take a moment to partner discuss why the not part of this slide is important.
Because it's verified, starting to verify parts, right?
And actually describing a child's worth or value because it leads into the A through F ratings
Ratings,
on the student progress measure, index number 2. that
Okay, yeah, we're
measures
gonna
the
breeze
growth
through
of
this.
a-
If she can make that kind of
a child
comment.
Yeah.
versus.
You're all kind of ahead of the game, you know, which is great. But STAR is not designed for a formative assessment because where does it occur? STAR is what? It's a summative, that's right.
So,
It happens when?
here's,
End of the year.
here's what we see over and over again, and I say it is cruel and unusual punishment.
Drives me nuts.
Cruel. It's child abuse. In the district, it was October. They said, well, we're gonna give an assessment to see where the kids are.
A
Well, what do
release.
you give it? A STAR release test?
Over stuff
In
that
October.
hasn't been taught.
I'm like, they haven't even had the instruction yet. STAR is not a formative assessment. So if teachers are telling you, if people are saying, we're gonna give a STAR in October, you tap on CPS.
It's not an interim assessment. She's getting a little drastic. Can't you just see it? Oh, I'm calling CPS. Guess what? They're giving the STAR as a formative. It's not an interim either, okay? It is a summative, meaning I've been taught this, all this instruction, so what, how does it turn out in the end? That I know with my formative. Those interims and the formatives should tell you, they should be those goal progress measures as to where we are going toward our summative. Okay? STAR is, and it definitely does not describe the worth of a child. Nor should it ever be used to place kids in gifted programs or anything else. It was not designed for that. I'm getting on my soapbox, I'm sorry. STAR is TEKS-based, criterion referenced, and summative. But it is TEKS-based, very closely aligned, beautifully. Now, in our accountability system, we have master's grade level, meets grade level, approaches grade level, and did not meet grade level. Okay? This is for our students. Students are expected to succeed in the next grade or course with little or no academic intervention. We have found that 75% chance of secondary success will happen without remediation if they are at master's grade level. Meaning they got it, they go beyond.
Right.
Meets grade level, we're looking at 60%.
Might
The
be
chance of
some
post-secondary success without remediation. Approaches, students are likely to succeed in the next grade level or course with targeted academic intervention. And did not meet grade level, of course, they're gonna need a lot of academic intervention. Where do you think the majority of the kids in Texas are?
Approaches.
Approaches.
That was always my contention was, that I was a teacher, whenever I administered a test, I always set the bar at 70 and above as passing. But when the state looks at stuff, it says, if we made a 50, it meets.
We'll get to that.
We're gonna get to that.
We'll get to that. One of the things that we often see, especially with school districts that, in terms of Lone Star governance, school districts that have IR campuses and IR, one district, they wrote their goals specifically to get out of IR. Everything, and they're like, the percentage of the students approaching grade level will increase from 40% to 65%. And I said, so you're telling your community that it's okay that 65% of your students aren't on grade level? And that's a goal that you want to achieve? And they went, is really that what that says? I'm like, yeah, approaches is not. So you really have to understand what this means. And that's why when we were writing our goals and looking at our goals and looking at our data, it took so long to filter through. But this district did a great job of focusing on their goals and what we were trying to move forward with.
And the state is not doing it at the moment, okay? We're still using an approaches position. But we're slowly moving toward meets and masters because these two categories are now impacting accountability. It's not okay just to leave a kid at approaches. It's not okay to even leave them at just meets. We have to keep striving for the masters. Master's grade level in English 3 indicates a 75% chance of post-secondary success without remediation. This is the same percentage chance as the ACT, SAT college readiness benchmarks. Okay? Notice too, I think that the main point here is the alignment. And that was something that Marcia was talking about a few minutes ago in that particular student expectation and that TEAC, that it laid the foundation for what was to come. And that's another beautiful thing about our TEACs, is that they truly do hit on the alignment. The key is we've got to make sure these kids meet grade level or master grade level so that they can continue to go up and be successful up here. Because as a high school principal, I can tell you, very, very disheartening and troubling when I had children that couldn't read and couldn't write and couldn't function at the high school level. Pass-fail. Our system in the past has been a system where all campuses and school systems that are not at the lowest level of performance are labeled as passing.
What was the lowest level?
Y'all remember, or y'all know?
What
The
percentile?
bottom 5 to 6% is IR.
Bottom 5th percentile. So you're telling my district's at 95th percentile, and this district is at the 6th percentile, but yet you're getting the same thing. That's like telling me that a size 2 is the same as a size 12. And it's not.
Which the two of us know it's definitely.
Which we definitely know it's not. But, and that's what, and we talked about this a lot in the training that we did. And I know that's where you're going and you were alluding to, is for years, board members were duped. I'm sorry, that's just the best way to say it. People would come in and they would say, we met standard. Hallelujah. We met standard. But they didn't tell you they met it at the 6th percentile. Which means that, you know, you just barely got over the hump.
Well, and in communities were duped. You know, parents, everyone believed, and even teachers to a certain extent, believing, oh gosh, we made it. Well, did
And
you really?
that's why so many of the IR campuses and districts, they might meet it, but they have a 90% chance the next year of going right back on, because they're just barely over. And because of that, that's why we're moving to the multi-tiered.
This system where several levels of performance are identified and where campuses and school systems receive the label that describes their performance. In Texas, those labels will be A, B, C, D, and F. Has this system failed before in other states? Yeah, it has.
So we learned from it.
So you say, hey, why in the heck are we doing that? Well, because it was still that forced distribution thing. You know how A, B, C, D, E, F, and you have a bell curve, and so many are this, and so many are that, and so, you know, same difference almost as the pass or fail one, to a certain extent. There's a forced distribution. But now in Texas, this was the key, is that the commissioner shall ensure that the method used to evaluate performance is implemented in a manner that provides the mathematical possibility that all districts and campuses receive an A rating. So if you make it, you make it. We could have every campus in the state of Texas making an A, just by the way, you know, the way it's set up. You can do it. So it doesn't have that disheartening piece that even though I'm scoring here with everybody else, I'm going to be forced into maybe a lower position. It also says, make sure we have stability in the model. We do not want the bar to keep changing. This has been a problem, and I know, Dr. A, you've had this a lot probably in your career, and I know I did too. Thank God, the bar changed every year. So how do I know we're going to make it? How can we even shoot for that? How do you kick a field goal when the field goal is going back and forth? You don't know if you're going to make it or not. So we want stability. And luckily with this system, this is what we're being guaranteed, is that we want to commit to something where the bar will remain static for 5 years. They give you at least 5 years where the rules don't change. which is huge, at least in my world, because the rules change every year.
Yeah.
Are you on there? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So when you look at these processes and this transfer that we experienced this year, going from the old system to the new system, we made those changes from going either that pass-fail. Go ahead and go to the next one. Yeah, where met standard or improvement required, you're either one or the other. Okay, either one or the other. But now they've expanded it out, and I know that there's been a lot of flack about A through F, and there was a lot of discussion about the data for A through F. But it truly is a much more transparent system for the community to see and understand. Because I could have been a D school district and still met standard. So when, you know, all of those school districts came and said, yay, we met standard, but we were actually functioning at this level, like we said, we were duping you guys. You guys were not, as a board, not as informed. And then all of a sudden, you're like, well, the next year their improvement required. Well, how we were met standard last year. Oh yeah, we didn't tell you, we just barely met standard. Okay. So now we have the new label systems, A through F.
That's pretty bad for the community whenever they see that.
Mm-hmm.
They
They don't
say,
know.
oh,
And that's why this was
last year,
such-
the other people that were running the district were doing well, but now that you guys took over, oh, we're now at this situation, but
And that's why there was so much going on about A through F, because people had, the transparency was there. They were like, well, okay, yeah, we're a D. We really were a D before. And if we don't change anything, we're gonna be a D again, if not worse. So it really lets you some transparency throughout the system. So when we go through, 70% is based on achievement or progress. You talked about that. 30% on closing the achievement gaps. Looking at student achievement is really student outcomes. What students know and are.
I gotta quit doing that.
Know and are. Y'all wanna go home? Able to do. Progress is that measure of, you know, did I grow from one place to another? And then closing achievement gaps is how quickly are we closing those in and bringing them in. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're gonna focus on student achievement.
And the two.
Okay, so in elementary school, middle school, star, that's it. That's the only way we measure student achievement in elementary and middle school. High school, you add in college and career readiness. Go to the next one. Okay, so college and career, all of these things flow into college and career readiness. And so that's why we were talking about those goal progress measures, why it was so hard, because it's not for college and career readiness, it's not that you have to have all of this and all of this and this. All you have to do is have one indicator. So to be college ready, I have to have so many students on AP or IB exams. I have to have so many students take the TSI. And they take your better number. They list them all out and they take your better number of which one. On college, career readiness, post-secondary certification, industry certification, and this one's really interesting, I'm gonna give you a heads up. Enlist in the armed forces. When we were at Council of Great City Schools in Baltimore, all of these 74 largest school districts in the United States, we were there and we were talking, and I asked, they were all talking CC, college career readiness. College career readiness. I was like, where's the military? I was like, do I not monitor the military? And they're like, no, we don't monitor the military. And I was like, are we the only ones that monitor the military? But here's the problem with monitoring the military. The military doesn't want us to monitor the military because the military will not disclose to us the students who have enrolled. Enlisted, I'm sitting here talking to an ex-colonel. That's okay. My dad's a retired colonel too, so. So that we can't get the data from the Department of Defense. So we ask students, do you intend to enlist? If this number, if you've had a CCMR problem in the past, and all of a sudden you're glowing because this goes up to 90% of your kids say that they're going to enlist, just know that's a red flag. Okay, so when you talk about college and career readiness next month in your monitoring report, you might want to ask, what is our process for identifying and verifying students enlisted in the military.
So we need to do a better job in.
Yeah.
Well, and we had a discussion about whether to include that as a goal progress measure for all those reasons. You know, and when we looked at the data, even the most, the school districts with the highest CCMR, the increase was minor. It was like 9% to 12%, and 12 was like the highest percentage. So like we knew we couldn't, you can't actually get to the overall goal by focusing on that. We
Just
actually
on
have to-
military,
Yeah.
yeah. And what did we find out? That only 23% of our students who try to get into the military actually get in. Do you know why?
It's a hard one, it's hard.
They can't pass the ASVAB. Okay, so if we're not teaching and we're not getting them ready on STAR, they're not gonna pass the ASVAB. They can't pass the physical fitness test either.
And this is a 7 to 9% national average Hispanic enlist to the army.
What percent?
7 to 9% Hispanic.
Even lower,
enlisted.
like for ours, for my, we're Latino.
Nationwide.
So, you know, the thought used to be, oh, honey, if you can't get a diploma, you can always go into the military.
Yeah, so it has not been easy.
Changed to 1995.
Yeah. Not an option anymore. So if you really have some of those kids that you think a military is a good option for them, one, I love junior ROTC. I'm a big junior ROTC fan. And number two, some school districts that I've talked to that have worked on college career, they put in special physical fitness classes for kids who said, I really kind of want to go in the military. Well then, Betty, you're going to double up on your PE. You're going to double up on your PE, you're going to take your ROTC. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. So, 60 by 30, one of the things I loved about designing our student outcome goals in Donna ISD was it all led to this, 60 by 30. Because we have goals that start in the elementary school, goals that go through the middle school, junior high school, and goals that go through the high school. And so our process is to meet this 60 by 30. 60% of adults ages 21 to 25 will have an associate's degree, diploma, or industry certification by the year 2030. And it just so happened today, your superintendent was with the commissioner, and he gave a report on that. So you want to share a little bit about that?
So the DA commissioner was here, Region 1 today, so we had a talk and conversation, and he talked exactly about this 60 by 30. And we are, believe it or not, we're at 25% as a state. Only 25% of our students have either a certificate, associate degree, or not bachelor's degree. And we want to get to 60.
We're 25%.
20% as a
And
state.
it's age 25 to 30.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So what he's saying is that we're extremely behind as a state. And we have a lot of
That's
work
it
to do.
overall as a state.
As a state, yes, sir. He was talking about as a state.
And so that 60 by 30
He's not
is
talking about the valley in particular, like our data, but I can pull that, that's not a problem.
So with the 60 by 30, it actually, sorry, I want to add one more thing. It looks at those percentages. It's the percentages. Did you see a percent of approach on here anywhere?
No.
No.
Yes, and that's what he said. He
Which
said-
goes to your domain score, how to get an A, how to get a B, how to get a C. It's your percent that meets or above plus your percent that masters by 3 to get your score. Okay, so it all aligns in that piece.
Who set the 60 by 30?
Who said the governor?
The governor.
The governor of
Okay.
Texas said this goal.
If you add them
The
up
current
and
That's
your
by
sum
2030.
is,
Yes.
At 2030.
if you add them up, all approaches, meets and master, and your sum is 180 divided by 3 is 60. 60 means you are making A grade. If your outcome is 52, you are making B grade. If your sum is 48, you are making C grade. If you are making 37, it's a D grade. 34, 32 and below, you are making F.
Yeah.
These are the scores.
And that's also the conversation we started this year when we talk about principals always focus on masters and meets. No more approaches, forget
No,
about
that's just,
approaches.
this is for everything.
And that is very wise.
Oh, yeah.
Even though the approaches is still in place,
you have to start working on meets and masters, you have to.
You can't ignore it.
And getting your kids, and your student outcome goals, ones that I've read and you've shown me tonight and Marcia showed me, you're definitely headed in the right direction because you are building the foundation. Not only are you at the high school or whatever, you're going to college career, military ready, but you're also building the foundation to get there.
And for all board members, I don't know if you know, when I got here, one of the first meeting I went to Region 1, they talk about CCMR. And when I came back and met with our high school principals and talked about CCMR, we were not tracking and we were not really coding the students the way it should be done. So we actually talked with Dr. Gutierrez, he's the superintendent of Edinburgh. It's an A district, and he was very gracious to take us over there. Spent like almost 3 hours. We took a group from both of high schools and from central office, and we went to Edinburgh. And they went through all the systems, all the structure that they have in place. They've been had that for like the past 2 or 3 years. So counselors, we took counselors too. We took all teams, everybody.
It's counselors to a
So we
certain
came back
extent,
and
it's
we
also-
start like planning, doing things here with for domain 3 for our CCMR.
Teams coding.
Yeah.
It's PEAMS coding.
It's
and
coding.
Depending on who you.
It's coding is given the DSI test on time, is given more AP courses and dual credit course. I mean, it's so many things needs to be done to increase our scores here.
And then it all boils down to documentation, right?
Correct.
Make
And
it-
you have to
Yeah, you
document
can
everything,
actually be
of
doing the
course.
right things, but if you're not coding it
Yes,
correctly,
correct,
you really do
correct.
You can really be doing that in the system.
I think that was one of the things that at the high school, they found out that we were doing a lot of those things, but they were just not being tracked
Coded.
and documented.
And also the graduation rate is year behind. So the graduation rate we are
See, you
receiving.
tell me I can't talk to people about all this stuff. She said, that's not your focus. But you're right, it's a year behind. I go in and I'm
Yeah.
working with people on Lone Star government side as I've been living this stuff for so many years. I go and say, oh, well, if you just do so, and she said, no, you're fine. But anyway, you're right, it's a year behind, and so everything that you do with graduation, it's got to be,
Year behind.
yes, and also, I'll talk to you later, track your cohorts,
Yes.
you know,
And that's what
all
we are
sorts of-
exactly
all
doing
time.
this year.
But
Yeah.
this, to follow, remember,
Okay,
it's a
10
year on
minutes.
behind.
Okay.
It's
I'll talk to you
almost
about
a year
that
behind.
later. I
So
created a
in
system
2018, this year,
for
2018
Texas,
will be
really,
done
for
for this
doing
year.
that. Okay,
Still
so,
progress.
yeah, progress. Well, you flipped out from it.
That's it. It's
Okay.
either 2 pieces to it.
Well, I know, but I was, okay. Evaluating improved student outcomes, accountability matters, school progress, student growth, and relative performance. So, notice, student growth is what? We're looking at how students what? Grow. Did they make it? You're gonna get points, okay, on this scale, if the students actually make progress. You get a half point if they don't fall off and go the other direction. Okay, so it's kind of a point system, but you can also, not only is it impacting the school district, but we can see what's happening with that kid. You know, are they growing? Are they not growing? Are they staying the same? And then two, if we have multiple kids maybe doing this and they're all in the same class or having the same teachers, then we can also see, maybe that is an instructional issue. So student growth can tell us quite a bit. Relative performance is basically, how is the school doing in regard to other schools of the same demographics? Okay?
We compare, it's an ED, economically disadvantaged, and it's a relative performance against the state of Texas. So Guzman Elementary, how Guzman Elementary is performing based on their ED numbers against the other campus elementary in the state of Texas. So then they say, okay, this is a very, our economic disadvantage is about 92, 94, 95%. So we have a very high chance to making a very good grade in this relative performance.
And notice it's only economically disadvantaged if you look at the graph with the A, B, C, D, F, because the others are not constant. So it compares a school, a campus, a campus that has the same percentage of poverty with their student achievement. So our school districts with low poverty having high achievement, I mean, you can't hide it.
No, and that's going back to that. So poverty is measured through, by the free and reduced lunch percentages, right? So if a student's qualified, it's high poverty, right? What the commissioner was saying today is, which I agree personally with, is you can be a family of 4, and if you make it less than $40,000 a year, you can qualify under like you're pretty much an ED student, right? Whereas there are families who are 4 making $10,000-$15,000, even poorer, right? But then they all put together. But it's not, to me, it's not fair because there are two different kids. You know what I mean? Like these kids are living in like real poverty, like real poverty. They cannot even have food to eat, right, every day. Whereas the other one may be able to get something to eat, but they are both put together.
Put in that same
So
group.
he's saying they're gonna try to come up with a different mechanism to separate, so
Separate.
better segregate, so maybe group, right, the students based on really how
Their
what their
poverty.
parents are making.
Not just
To
their
me, make
poverty,
it
but what is
fair.
their poverty
Exactly.
I know
level.
exactly what he's talking about. I've
You know what I
seen
mean?
it.
Like, so that's what,
Yeah.
and that's what the commissioner was saying today, they're thinking about, we're planning on.
But the
making
reason
some
they go
changes.
with poverty is because poverty is the one piece that is that identifier as to what the potential of a kid. I mean, not the potential, but the success of a kid. It can impact that success. Even if the kid is extremely intelligent and got everything in the world up here, but they're living in just terrible poverty type situation, their mind's more on, where am I gonna eat tonight? Where am I gonna eat? Where am I gonna sleep? Is it gonna be cold? So,
Basic
those
needs.
basic
Yep.
needs, that's right. So, poverty is that, it defines that piece. So, that is why, we use poverty, and that's why we use your, economic disadvantage. I think they should throw into some of the at-risk kids too,
Oh,
yeah. But they'll figure that out, I hope. Anyway, so we have student achievement, school progress, and we have closing the gaps. Closing the gaps, improving student outcomes. This is all students, and we're gonna be looking at every group. Race, ethnicity, special ed, continuously enrolled, English language learners, economically disadvantaged. Are we closing the gaps with them? Student groups, up to 13, indicators up to 6.
Very complicated
It's a
measure.
very complicated measure, and I do not know
This is
how they
different than
actually calculate it.
distinctions.
Yeah,
Yes, this is different than the
it's totally-
distinctions.
Yes.
Um,
You're gonna have all your student groups involved, you can have up to 13 being measured.
I think that's what you talked about the DLPAC meeting, didn't you?
Yes.
That report.
Mhm. So in our district, ethnicity is Hispanic.
Right.
So then we look at the Hispanic, and then the all students Hispanic, and then we have ethnicity. We wanna see the special education students.
Yeah.
We wanna see the economically disadvantaged students, and then we wanna see our students, they are lab students. They're 4.
Right, because
So
you
lab,
probably wouldn't have
special
the
education,
Lebanese or
and
Asians.
economically disadvantaged, and the Hispanic. So we wanna see there is no gap. If
Right.
there is a gap, so then we get the test points.
So it might be an appropriate question to say, you know, as you're preparing this CCMR report, not only do we want the all students, but we want it broken down by our ethnic groups, so you can see the monitoring of that as well.
And there are set goals for each one of these groups, so TA already said you need to be at 33% for this, I don't remember the exact number for each category, but 44 for Hispanic, 33 for special ed.
So that's where
those
the
numbers are
PEMS
set.
information
Those
is.
standards.
Exactly.
That's where the PEMS code comes in very, very.
Yes, sir, Beams is pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, even when you're monitoring, even if it's a generalized goal, I personally feel like you should be definitely keeping abreast of where your different ethnicities as well as your different categories are going, and keep a track of that.
And that's what we realized last year. So the special education student, we should be coding 52, 53, 54. We were coding differently, so we did not get the credit
Oh,
in
interesting.
the CCMR report, 43%. So we,
Live and learn,
yeah.
fix and move on.
It
So,
will impact.
one of the things that I am so proud about Donna ISD is you all did take the plunge and you did have and ask for the support of a coach in the implementation, because implementation matters. And in this implementation process, you have already created outstanding student outcome goals. You have already created monitoring calendars. But pull up that November agenda that you all had, because this was very strategically written in terms of an agenda. Number one, you said the pledge, said your prayer, we're all patriotic, that's what we do. What was the next thing?
LSG, Toronto report.
Lone Star Governance. Think of a movie. When you see a movie or you read a book, you remember the very beginning and you remember the very end. Everything that happens in between goes hard. And when you all come to these board meetings, it's not like y'all been sitting at home waiting all day for these board meetings to start and you're so refreshed and so you've been working all day and you've been doing things all day. So these meetings, you know, these evening meetings, we're not always, you know, on our energy level at peak performance. So having Lone Star Governance, everybody remembers what you start with first. And here's what it tells you, the community. It tells the community what you value most. And that means that you value what your students are doing more than anything else. And we sat down and we worked through this agenda and we purposely put that very first thing. And so I hope that continues, that everything you start off with starts with not just Lone Star Governance, but student outcomes. Student outcomes. Those are the reason we exist, they're the reason we're here, and it's what we owe our community and what we owe our students.
Real quick, comment is, the beginning of the meeting, that's where it's packed with all the parents of all the kids who are being recognized and awarded and stuff, and they're like, and they, right after the kids get recognized, I mean, it's like, goes from 100 to 30 people in here.
I've had some people say, we want our finances and bid approvals processes at the very beginning, because these people that are coming, waiting to see if the board has any questions about their bids, then they can go home after it's over. And I said, so you're telling me adult convenience is more important than student achievement? No, maybe not. And then you get the other end of the spectrum. Last night,
Yeah, it happened toward the end of the meeting. I was actually evaluating a board that I will be working with. They just wanted some input. And where did they thought they were trying to do all this on their own. And so, you know, to their credit, at least they were trying to do some kind of student outcomes. But where did they put it? At the end. What time did we finish that meeting? 11 o'clock. Okay,
I think,
that's why I'm going on 3 hours of sleep, so if I have no idea where. So, but yeah, it was 11 when we finished that meeting.
but I was gonna add to what he said as far as the community, but I also think it needs to be pulled down to the campus principals. Because if the campus principals have that community involvement for all their meetings, all their conversations, all their actions, everything that they do consists of student outcomes, it's gonna go out to the community.
Well, and that's the whole,
So
when
it's-
we're looking at Lone Star Governance, we begin with the board. Why we begin with the board? Because you are the governing umbrella under which everything else functions. Then it moves down to the campus level.
Lone Star, we have a
And
Lone Star campus model.
Then we have the dealing with the students, the restorative discipline piece, which we go in and work with the students as well. So what really turned me on about this whole thing is how powerful that is. In that if we have the board, and we have the campus, and we have the students, all aligned with that mindset, first of all, and going in the same direction, you can't help but succeed.
And we've had this conversation, and I've made some recommendations to the superintendent. We've got to get the student outcome goals things, we've got to get the functioning of the school board and everything moving in a particular pattern. I would not suggest doing Lone Star Campus at all campuses at the beginning. I would suggest maybe selecting 3 or 4 to start with Lone Star Campus and pilot it there and then expand it out. And then we move forward through that. So our goal is working with you guys first in the next, 6 to 8 months. Then we're gonna start talking about Lone Star Campus as we're building and preparing for next year when the data comes back, and that's what we'll be working on over the summer months.
Right, but I'm not talking about the training, I'm talking about the concept. The concept of student outcomes, student outcomes.
That's what the training is.
That doesn't have to wait until they get trained, that's something that should be.
Oh, no, we can actually come back and we
ritual.
can do similar training, and that's what we, also do recommend, is just have this similar conversation with the campus administrative staff. And we can come back and do that. I don't know when you all have a time for, it's very hard to pull every principal
No,
in
we
the
do,
district.
we do principal meetings once a month, so we can, I don't know how much time do you need, but we can.
The main thing, I think, is to make sure, like you said, that they understand the concept of student outcomes,
We
student
can.
outcome goals.
Inputs, outputs, outcomes,
And the fact
student
that
outcomes,
they're
goal
aligned
progress
with all
measures.
that they're on board with all that they understand the concept.
Right, that's.
That's what you're trying to get.
So the next recommendation is to go to a Lone Star governance training, which some of you had. We wanted to do this training because we have set the dates of January 18th and 19th in San Antonio for you guys to come in. My recommendation would be, if you can, there's power in numbers, there's power in conversation. Those of you that have been through it before know how powerful those reflective pieces are in conversations. I would love to see the whole board go through this again, because I think it builds a unity for the district, and the dates are January 18th and 19th. And I would also like to see some leadership people there from your cabinet, that if they haven't already gone, that if they could come, because if they've already gone, it's okay.
They're like,
Do you want 5, 10, or 15 by this clock? But you guys are, well ahead of everybody else. The reason why I wanted to come in and do this training, this is called 1566, because it covers the accountability piece. We've talked a lot about it, stuff that you've already done. The campuses that are coming into the training, I think we're going to be adjusting some of the training, so we're not repeating the accountability piece, because Mansfield, everyone had done 1566 before they came. I might have to do a little relief piece with the 3 new people in PSJA, and then you guys. So we wanted to do this so we could adapt some of what we do in Lone Star Governance to give even the people who are returning, there's some new stuff. You thought the first one was deep? There's some new stuff.
So Mansfield's the other board.
Mansfield, that's up in the Dallas area, that's why they selected San Antonio, it's halfway in between.
PSJ?
PSJA, and you guys. And I will be doing the co-presentation for those of you. It's a very different format, it's very different. I won't be standing up, I won't be walking around, I won't be doing that kind of stuff. But it is 8:03, I apologize for going 3 minutes over. Thank you for your time. Just like we started, you all could have been anywhere, but you spent 3 hours listening to us talk about student outcomes. Who think you could take a student student outcomes and make it last 3 hours? But we can.
Make it last 2 days, January.
Any questions? We're here.
You're coming from where?
Huh?
Where are y'all coming from?
I live in Houston.
No, but y'all are coming from Austin to do the training, or from Region 1?
No, we are going to San Antonio.
Y'all are going to San
You
Antonio.
all's training today.
Oh, they came
Right
from
now.
Houston.
We came from Houston.
Okay, that's what I wanted to.
Lori and I are, there are 14 Lone Star governance coaches in the state of Texas.
Okay, so you're actually Lone Star Governance Training Coaches?
Yes, we are the only 2 that are not associated with Education Service Center. We're sort of independent. We're subsidized by the Next Board company. We have our platform piece that we're getting into with you guys to get the platform piece going. We have a software piece that supports all of this and puts all of this together. Because we don't work at a service center, this is the only thing Lori and I do. So we spend a lot of time doing it. Region 1, they do not have anyone certified in Region 1. to provide this training. And there are only 5 service centers that have people certified to do
Well,
that.
and our service center friends that do this, they wear a lot of different hats. It's hard for them, maybe
I just wasn't sure like where were y'all coming from.
Yeah,
I
so-
came from Austin because
She
I
was
was
in
at
Austin.
school and around the Austin area.
But-
I'm normally in Houston.
That's where, but our company, Next Board, is housed in Austin.
Okay.
So we are just all over the place. We're often like, what month is it, what day of the week is it, and what town am I in, because we don't.
I got it.
Yeah, it's
So,
Tuesday.
Mr. Dunham, this is awesome.
That's the way we're doing,
And we-
poster.
This is
we
great
have
on a
poster,
one page.
And then we are going to give to
Recap.
each department, each principal,
This is
and
great.
that's how we are going to go to the students.
Oh, it's on the back of our.
No, we have to, do you want to move, motion, or what? What do you
We're
want?
just gonna adjourn because it wasn't a meeting, it was just a workshop.
Okay, we are adjourning at 8:06. Thank you very much.